Gotta go. You did a EKG and they said you gotta.
Let me call the Berkeley City Planning Commission to order for its regular meeting of Tuesday, September the 27th, 2016. Would you all please rise for the pledge to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Could I have a roll call?
Martin Smith,
Here.
Buckler, Richardson,
Here.
Shadle. Here. Tangari,
Here.
Murad,
Here.
Pop. Here. Dean Smith,
Here.
Barnett.
Present. Now I entertain a motion to approve the agenda this evening.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Murad. Is there any second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shado. Any discussions on the agenda this evening? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote.
Tangari,
Yes.
Martin Smith,
Yes.
Shadle.
Yes.
Pop.
Yes.
Dean Smith,
Yes.
Murad,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Barnett.
Yes. Now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of July the 26th, 2016.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Dean Smith.
so moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Mr. Murad seconds it. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote.
Pop.
Yes.
Dean Smith,
Yes.
Shadle,
Yes.
Martin Smith.
Yes.
Tangari,
Yes.
Murad,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Barnett.
Yes. Any communications?
You have a couple of DD8 agendas in your packet.
Okay. Okay, now I'm going to entertain citizens' comments. We come to this portion of the program, of the meeting tonight. Commission members will not engage you in discussion. You may speak on a specific agenda item when it is being discussed. When an individual has completed their comments, we ask that you refrain from applause or other gestures of approval or disapproval, because this can intimidate to some. When you come to the microphone, please state your name and city of residence. Are there any citizens' comments? Seeing no one rushing to the microphone this evening, I guess we'll close that portion of the meeting. Citizens will have an opportunity to participate in discussions as we move through the various aspects of this meeting tonight. Ms. Vanson.
Item number 1 is elections, matter of electing a chair, vice chair, and secretary of the Planning Commission.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Vance, I have a couple questions for you in regards to the elections. Are we required to pick all 3 positions? I know we elect a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary.
According
or do
to
we do
your,
it individually?
you can do so individually, according to the bylaws in July, but we postponed it because there were some absences in July. But according to the bylaws, the chair, vice chair, and secretary are supposed to be selected. They don't have to be done all at once, but they are supposed to be done. So there have been instances where the Planning Commission has selected a chair, had a vote on that, selected the vice chair, then had a vote, and then the secretary. In other years, it's been the full slate
Okay,
that have been done all at once.
all right. The role of chair, other
Yes.
than running the meetings, what else are they responsible for?
Practice has been that they go to the council meetings, but that, again, is not required by the bylaws. But that is something that this Planning Commission has asked the chair to do for many years now. If there are questions on an agenda item, that is something that the chair and I would confer with. A lot of times the agenda's set because it's applicant-driven, but if there are discussion items, or if there was a discussion item that the Planning Commission we were thinking that was going to happen, but then you end up with 3 site plans, then that discussion, the chair's given a heads up just so that they know it hasn't been forgotten. The evening was going to get too late.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
What is the desire of the Planning Commission this evening?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Dean Smith?
are you willing to stand for re-election as chair?
Yes.
Mr. Smith, the other Mr. Smith, the good-looking one. Are you willing to stand for re-election?
Sure.
Mr. Richardson?
I will once again assume the heavy burdens of Secretary. Mr. Smith, I'm willing to stand for re-election.
Thank you. Mr. Chair,
Mr. Dean Smith?
I would move, or I do move, to propose, post, re-elect, return you or continue you in your position as chair, Martin Smith as position of vice chair, and Mr. Richardson as secretary.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Shadle? Ms. Shadle?
thank you. I'd be interested if there were any other members of the Planning Commission that would like to step up and take on further responsibilities at this time.
Are you interested in taking up
No.
further responsibilities?
Asking the question.
Hearing none?
Just wanted that to be clear.
Then I guess we'll take a roll call vote. Ms. Vanson?
I have a question first. I don't know if I can ask for a point of order or a point of inquiry. May I approach?
Generally, this is an issue that's resolved by the Planning Commission itself.
I'm just curious as to whether there's going to be citizen comments regarding the election or whatever it is that we're calling this evening.
On the agenda.
No.
Okay.
We don't normally do this.
It's an agenda item.
Citizens are allowed to speak on an agenda
Yes,
item.
they are.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Murad?
So Commissioner Shadle asked all of us if any of us are interested in being the chair. None of us are interested in being the chair. Nobody spoke up. So I don't know what the item is that needs to be discussed.
Well, I think if the Planning Commission is going to be making a decision.
Please come to the microphone then.
Absolutely, gladly. Paul Shkreli, live on Royal. If tonight is going to be the night that we're going to have an election of chairpersons for the Planning Commission, you have a full house here tonight. There are many people who have many comments that they wish for the Planning Commission to know before the election is made. Perhaps after the citizen comments, there will be some changes from some members who may be considering running or applying for a position. Thank you.
Mr. Chair? Again, I'd like to ask all my fellow commissioners, anybody else want to take on the role of chair? Please speak up now. Because we have a very full agenda tonight.
Mr. Chair? Or may I interrupt Mr. Murad for a moment?
Sure.
Go ahead, you have the floor,
Okay,
Mr.
here-
Smith.
Let's just be very direct. I received several emails recommending that I support Mr. Glengarry as chair. I will speak for myself when I say I've got 3 meetings of history with him. That's not enough to get a feel for his sense of leadership and overall direction for the Planning Commission. So at this point, I could not nominate another candidate with 3 meetings of history. Now, the rest of you have 15, is it 15 meetings? So you may have another view, but unless somebody can self-nominate, we're kind of stuck here.
I would not be able to attend city council meetings. I work those nights, so that is, I would not feel comfortable.
It is a requirement.
Moving.
Mr. Martin Smith.
You know, there's three appointments or three appointments on the planning commission. And once again, as Mr. Muir had said, we've gone around, I also received several requests
Yep, as did I.
to support Mr. Tangari. He has not raised his voice, is looking for that appointment. We can ask him bluntly, are you interested in being the chairman?
I feel that if I were the chairman, I probably would be selling the community somewhat short because of my work schedule. That's
Thank you.
that's my blunt
Good,
answer
honest-
to you.
honest
Very
Thank you.
result. I think that settles the issue. You know, we've all gotten these requests. Apparently, nobody asked him. So I think even if they did ask him, if he's not interested in fulfilling the duties of a chairman, we're done with that issue.
Okay.
Then point of inquiry, Ms. Vanson, I just want to confirm, is this an election or an appointment that we're discussing these three positions tonight? Because we're saying election, but we're also saying appointment, so I want to confirm this is an election where people vote.
This is an election where the planning commission selects the chair, vice chair, and secretary.
Okay, and I guess another point of inquiry, is the planning commission restricted or otherwise limited to appointing members for these three positions from the current planning commission, or are they able to select from the general citizenship?
They have to select from the individual planning commissioners that are currently on the board or currently on the commission.
Okay, thank you.
As a point of just clarifying the process for a planning commission, is a planning commissioner has to be appointed by the city council. So someone who's not been appointed by the city council can't hold an office on the planning commission.
Call the roll.
Martin Smith,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Shadle,
Yes.
Tangari,
Yes.
Murad,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Dean Smith,
Yes.
Barnett.
Yes. Item number 2, appointments.
Item number 2 is appointments, matter of appointing planning commission liaisons to the Downtown Development Authority, which meets the second Wednesday of every month at 8 a.m., correct, Ms. Pop? Commissioner Pop?
Yeah.
Okay. The city council meets the first and third Monday of every month at 7 p.m., and the Chamber of Commerce meets the fourth Friday of every month?
Nope.
No, I'm sorry. When did
It's
they
the
meet?
second Wednesday of every month
my.
at 5:15.
Second Wednesday of every month at 5:15. Okay.
So we're down to those appointments. What is the desire? Ms. Pop? do you-
I am perfectly happy to continue in this position.
As am I.
Are you? Mr. Richardson, you're on the environmental.
Yes, and we hope that we will be more active in the future, so I'm willing to continue in that role.
Okay, thank you. I was approached by Josephine Brewer from the Parks and Rec Board. And because they're getting into this new issue with the new park at Oxford, they would like to, she indicates that they would like to see a representative to attend Parks and Rec for whatever value we could contribute. And is there anybody that would be interested in that, doing that?
Mr. Chairman, if I
Yes.
may, I served on that board for several years. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I didn't leave because of any reasons other than life gets in the way, and you know, I attend a lot of evening meetings, and I just couldn't make it to the meetings anymore. I would hope, but it is a very worthy cause for one of us to be there. They're planning, that's what we do, and it's unfortunate that we're all busy in our lives. But if someone would like to step up, and they have cookies every month.
Yeah, they do have cookies. She did tell me they have cookies, so it's.
So I just am
Reason
not
to
able
avoid
to
it.
go back. So
Mr. Chair, do you know when the meetings are?
I forget.
I want to say it's a Thursday, at least it used to be.
Okay.
I can find out for next meeting, though.
Okay. let's hold it, let somebody think about it. And Mr. Dean Smith, you sit on the ZBA, so the ZBA is covered. So do you folks want to continue as liaisons, I assume? Everybody? Okay.
Yes.
This side of the room's covered.
This side of the room's covered.
Thursdays are hard.
Well, I have Mr. Tangeri on a committee and Ms. Buckler on a committee with the city council for the Coolidge Highway. I don't know whether you guys have met yet or not.
Once.
Once, okay. So there's that. So you guys are kind of committed to those.
Well, Mr. Chair, if we could maybe find out the date and time and
Okay.
see if it works for Ms. Shadle.
Okay,
Yeah, if it's Thursdays, that's tough.
all right. Let's find out the
I will
date and
find out.
times for Parks and Rec.
Okay,
Okay, so I guess we put that aside.
yes.
All right, now we move on to item number 3.
Item number 3 is rezoning RZ 0216 27799 Woodward LLC regarding 960, 972, 984 Oxford and the east 20 feet of 996 Oxford, lots 306, 307, and 308, and the east 20 feet of lot 305 of the Larkmore Boulevard subdivision. Parcel IDs 2517 431 023, 2517 431 022, 2517 431 021, and the 20 easterly feet of 2517 431 034, north side of Oxford between Woodward and Stanford, is requesting a rezoning from single-family residential district R1D to parking district P1. In accordance with section 138-681A, a sketch plan of the proposed parking lot will also be discussed.
Is the petitioner here this evening?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Tom Callis. I'm here representing the petitioner, 27999 Woodward LLC. My address is 31350 Telegraph Road, Suite 201, Bingham Farms, Michigan. Thank you, Ms. Vanson, for that summary. We are here this evening requesting a conditional rezoning under the statute, being Michigan Compiled Laws 125.3405 of the residential lots mentioned by Ms. Vanson from residential to parking district. Now, we have attached to our application, and you should have in your packets, renderings of the parking lot that we are proposing to build. An actual site plan of that parking lot, a colored rendering of that site plan showing the different lots, the wall that's going to be constructed both on the westerly side of the parking lot and on the southern side of the parking lot. There's also attached renderings looking at the parking lot with the walls, the parking spaces, the landscaping that's going to be provided, the lighting, looking at it on Oxford, looking at it westerly, and also looking at it towards the east side. Now, we're also proposing, as part of the conditional rezoning, you'll see on that lot 996, the westerly portion of that lot, we're going to construct a new home on that lot. There's currently a home on there now. It's going to be demolished. I believe we've secured the demolition permit. We're waiting on some approvals with utilities, and that home will be demolished and a new home will be constructed thereon. Now, the parking will be used, as indicated in the conditional zoning agreement, for customer parking for Vincetta Garage Restaurant. The lot is going to be constructed in accordance with your ordinance and in accordance with the plans that have been submitted as part of the conditional rezoning. Now, it's a little bit different. I know the petitioner was in here before asking for a rezoning. What we've done under the statute is we've come in under conditional rezoning request. Now, what that is under the law is it allows a developer to offer conditions and site plans binding themselves to build what is submitted in your packets. Typically on a rezoning, if I were to come in and ask for a rezoning to a certain district, indicating that I'm going to build a certain use, and you granted that rezoning or you recommended approval of that rezoning, and then the city council later on voted to approve the rezoning, even though I said I was going to build perhaps a CVS or a Walgreens, I'm not limited as to what I can build under that zoning district. What the conditional zoning does is it gives the comfort level to the city or the municipality whereas the developer is offering the conditions and the uses that it's going to build, and how it's going to build and what it's going to look like. So you have those in your packet, and obviously we're available to answer any questions you may have relative to the development itself. Representative from the landowners here also this evening, Mr. Casey Crane.
What happens if we don't like the site plan that you have with you tonight?
Well, the site plan is submitted, it's a condition offered by the developer. If there's comment on the site plan by the Planning Commission members, then those comments can be made, we can address them. We can always go back and modify the site plan or the renderings and the site plan that was submitted if necessary, or we can proceed and ask for a vote or a recommendation and then proceed on to the City Council. So those have been submitted for your review. You'll see the site plans, you'll see the configurations, the dimensions, they're all on there. The wall that's going to be built, the dimensions of the wall, the parking spaces. It's going to allow for 46 additional parking spaces for the Vincetta Garage restaurant business. Those 46 parking spaces under the conditional zoning agreement are to be used only for customer parking. If the rezoning is approved by the City Council, we then have 1 year to commence construction from final engineering approval. I want you to be cognizant of the fact that even though you may recommend approval of the rezoning and the City Council may approve the rezoning, we still have to go through the city site plan and engineering review approval process, okay? So that, nothing changes there. There's obviously safeguards built into the ordinances, you know, for site plan approval, for engineering, to make sure we meet all the ordinance requirements.
Ms. Vanson?
Yes.
If this was approved this way, and we don't like the site plan, can they come back and review do they have to resubmit the site plan to us, or is this all tied together?
They're going to resubmit us, if the rezoning goes through, they would have to come back to you as a site plan. What the conditional rezoning enables is that rather than, and the fact that parking district only really allows parking, it's as opposed to, as Mr. Callis said, if you thought you were getting a bistro pub and you end up getting a Walgreens, that's a little different with the rezoning, right? That's kind of a bait and switch. With parking, it's going to be parking. The question is the Planning Commission satisfied conceptually with this plan? So if, for instance, but with the conditional rezoning, it's not something you can require, it's something that the applicant needs to say, I would like to do this, rather than you attaching conditions with it. So this is going to be similar to a sketch plan when you've met with folks that are coming before kind of hashing out an idea of something. So if, for instance, you want lighting to be a certain way, or you want a different kind of wall, or you want additional landscaping, or you want the parking lot lights to be embedded in the wall, or some, you know, for instance, those kinds of things, or you have opinions on the driveway, those are the kinds of things that you can talk about at this point. You should kind of have it buttoned up if you're going to recommend it to City Council, just so, likewise, the applicant has some assurances as well, as so that, you know, he can be reasonably assured of going into the site plan approval process that you're not going to all of a sudden decide something different. It's you know, to ensure that there's, that they know what's required and you know you have some expectation of what is going to be built. So nobody's doing a bait and switch on each other. Did that make sense, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, but it bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
It bothers me very much. The fact that Vincetta Garage has failed to complete the other parcels on the other side of the road, on the other street, bothers me. And from the fact that now we want to do this, and this is the way we want to do it. And the city has bent over backwards for the other property.
Are you talking about Eaton Street?
Yes, I'm talking about Eaton Street.
Eaton Street is in progress, Mr.
Eaton
Chairman.
Street, I don't know where it stands at this point.
Demo permits needed to be pulled, but keep in mind Eaton Street involved another property owner to the north.
Yes, I know what it
So-
involved because we were involved in rezoning pieces and parts and pieces of it, so we've already done our part. And I'm just concerned about the fact that A, it isn't finished, and B, I don't know that it will ever be finished. It
Eaton
bothers
Street will
me.
be constructed with
Well.
Oxford.
The other issue I have with Oxford right now, and we get into parking, right now, I do not like what I've seen in the site plan, so I'm going to defer that for the moment.
Well, that's a condition, the
Yes, I know
sketch
that.
we offered. If you have comment, obviously,
I do.
we're
We
willing
will.
to hear it.
But I'm going to hear a little bit from the Planning Commission. Any comments at this point, or I'm going to open a public hearing? Mr. Muir.
For me, I was kind of surprised to see this tonight. I was expecting Eaton, because that's something that's been in the works. If I recall correctly, in the agreement, it was supposed to be coming before us.
Yes. But Eaton
Very
does not have
quickly.
enough parking spaces, even as approved. And that was the understanding all along. that Eaton
Nothing's been
and
approved,
Oxford.
nothing has been approved for Eaton. I haven't seen a plan to tell you how many spaces that's gonna be.
The plan for Eaton Street, sure, it was submitted. They're in the process of securing permits for the
Okay,
demo.
so I'd rather see that
Eaton's going to
first.
add an additional 14 spots to the existing 17 spots. Eaton will end up with 31 spots. Oxford will end up with 46 spots.
And how many are on site?
How many are on site? 25.
So you wanna build, when you only need to meet your parking requirements, you need 8 more spots and you wanna build 46 more spots?
No, because, see, what you have to understand, we have 67 spots that we're leasing, do not belong to us. So we're subject to the mercy of those landowners and the lease agreements. They can terminate those agreements tomorrow, we lose 57 parking spaces. What we're trying to do is be the masters of our own destiny, create the parking, build the parking. We need Eaton and Oxford together. We're not going to build one and not the other. That's a condition we're offering. We're going to build both of them, okay? But we need both of them together because,
So, wait a second, let me interrupt you.
Yes.
So you just told me that if we don't approve this, you're not gonna build Eaton.
Eaton, no, what I'm saying is Eaton was approved, but there still are not enough spots in Eaton.
But you just said that you're planning on building Eaton and Oxford together.
For economies of scale, yes.
Again, if you build Eaton out,
Right.
you're saying that's gonna be 31 spaces
Altogether, yes,
altogether. You say you already have 25
on site.
on site. Okay, my math says that's 56. If I'm understanding correctly, Amy, they require 64 spots. So you're
Yes.
8 spots short. To meet 8 spots, you wanna build a lot that holds 46 spaces that you
But-
don't really need?
But the on-site, those will be our parking lots. The on-site parking at Vincetta is subject to anyone parking along that Woodward Strip.
I understand that.
So this is the only way we can really secure that we have enough parking that we own, that we control.
I understand that.
See, Woodward is under the, it's a,
But
it's
what
a-
I'm asking you
public
is,
thoroughfare.
you're required to have 40 or 64 spaces. You, with Eaton and your current on-site spaces, you have 56.
Mhm.
So to meet your requirement, you need 8 additional spaces, but you want to build 46.
But take away the parking spots that we don't own. See, we don't have those parking spots. They can be taken away from us tomorrow, and we'll be woefully short on your parking
What
requirements.
parking spots are going to be taken away?
The ones that we rent right now. Because the 25 on Eaton are subject to other people parking there. On Woodward, I'm sorry, on site. The
Okay,
Eaton parking right
so
now is our
you have-
parking
You
lot.
have space right next to your building, right to the south of your building. How many spots are in there?
On the Woodward side?
On the south
South
side
side.
of your
Side of
building.
Woodward.
Between your building and the building to the south of you. There's a lot there.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I don't know,
Amy, do
I'm
we
not
know how many
picturing where you're
spaces
Yeah,
talking
you have
about.
a site
Six.
plan, and I'm rummaging through the file, but
I
you
can
do
tell you
have
what's
one.
in Eaton.
It's here somewhere.
Yep.
I believe it's 26
Got
spaces.
It was 26.
14 to the south and 12 to the west.
That
That's
includes
owned by
Eaton.
Vincetta. That's just what's immediately abutting the building. The Eaton lot has
So you've got 26 spaces
15.
adjacent to the restaurant.
It's owned, not
That
leased.
they control and own.
yes, and
Okay.
there's 15 at formerly 1010 Eaton.
Right. And they're saying that's gonna go from 15 to 31. So that now is 57
There's
spaces,
15 to 29, I'm sorry. Eaton will have 29.
okay? So you're at 55. The city's requirements are 64 spaces. So you'd need 9 additional spaces. So in lieu of finding a way to build 9 additional spaces, you want to build a lot of 46 spaces.
On Oxford Street. We need more parking than what's required.
Where,
As you can see if you visit the restaurant, we need more parking.
where are you currently leasing these additional 57
We're
spaces
leasing
then?
from North Point Medical to the north and from the
Okay.
Donut Cutter. 50 spots from North Point Medical and 17 spots from Donut Cutter.
So currently, you have the 26 owned, the 15 at Eaton, and then an additional 57 right now. That's the current situation, 57 are leased.
We have 25, right, plus the 50 from,
15.
but those are only available after 5 PM. Donut Cutter is only available after a certain
Okay.
time. So we don't have any parking for lunch.
Okay.
You know,
Is
there's
that 7 days a
restrictions.
week? Or are the hours that those are available different on Saturday and Sunday?
Saturday and Sunday, if those businesses are not open, then we have access to the parking all day. Weekdays, it's after 5 PM.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Murin.
I know Commissioner Pott lives right next to the North Point lot. Do you see a lot of cars parked in there? Thank you.
Mr. Richardson.
Mr. Kalis, I'm still a little confused about Eaton Street. There's 15 spaces on 1010 Eaton. I think we're all agreed on that. And you have 2 additional lots you're working with on Eaton, correct? One is owned by your client, and then the other is owned by T-Mobile. And I understand that the city has brokered a lot sharing agreement pertaining to the lot in the middle. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, now are you telling me that the 2 additional lots at 1036 and 1046 Eaton are only going to yield 14 spaces?
14 more spaces.
Okay, when you have a single lot that's 15 spaces? Is that because certain spaces are reserved for T-Mobile?
No. The Eaton right now has 15, and we're going to get an additional 14.
Well, if
We're
you're...
only expanding it to the west, not to the north.
Because the way the collaboration agreement
it was
worked is
reconfigured.
T-Mobile's going to keep the north.
Okay, so
Third.
really you're just using half a lot, if you will.
2/3 of a lot.
Okay.
And we may not even get, when it goes through the actual construction engineering stage, we may not yield 14. We're hoping to get 14. It may be
So
less.
we haven't even got that engineered yet.
And in any case, without granting this request, you still have at least 55 spaces. Are we clear on that?
Yeah, about 54. You're right.
All right, I have one other question, too. Undoubtedly, you've familiarized yourself with the background of this parking controversy, and you undoubtedly know that we rejected a similar proposal to the one you're making tonight in 2014, 2 years ago. Aside from your offer of conditional zoning, aside from that, just leaving that out of the equation for a minute, are there any other changes in circumstances between 2 years ago and tonight? Are there anything different that your client is sort of out of your client's control that we should know about?
Well, the parking that we're leasing is out of our control, and it really worries us because if we don't have that parking, if they terminate our leases, we're in deep trouble. Now, what we're doing with Oxford, we purchased 4 lots. We're building the parking lot as shown in the renderings. We're also building a new house. So there's going to be buffering there from the existing residential to the west, and there's going to be a new house that's going to be built right next to the parking lot. We've got screening wall, you can see on the renderings. There's landscaping. The parking lot is very aesthetically pleasing, okay? And it abuts residential.
I
It's
suppose
just like-
that's debatable, but I'm not asking about that. I just want to know if your client's situation has changed. The only change I'm aware of from 2 years ago is that there's actually less demand for on-street parking in the neighborhood around there.
Well, the parking demand is still there. That's what's driving this whole thing.
And you had these agreements in place 2 years ago as well.
What
so
agreements?
That wouldn't be a change in circumstance. That's just something you want to change for yourself.
Well,
And
the parking, believe me, if there was no parking demand, we wouldn't have gone and bought the property. We wouldn't be in here trying to rezone residential to parking. The parking demand and the shortage of parking is what's driving this whole rezoning.
that's all I had for now.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here on the planning commission? Mr. Tay, Gary?
So are you on some sort of month-to-month lease with these parking spaces that you're leasing?
Correct.
Okay. I think for now, we'll hear from the public and we can talk later.
Ms. Shader, you got anything?
Yep, no, that's it.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman,
Mr. Martin Smith?
I want to back up a little bit. This is a conditional rezoning, Amy.
Yes.
We've done PUDs. This is very similar to a PUD. What are the fine point differences?
Well, under ordinance, a PUD has to be bigger. But it is essentially, and instead of it being a final site plan that's coming before you all at once and going to council, this is really just a sketch plan, and you're going to see it again. But I'd say it's very similar.
And that's why I suspected. I just wanted to make sure there weren't a few other things, for all of us and everybody out there that may understand a PUD. That's really essentially the same thing.
Yes, that's very
But
similar.
and the good thing about a PUD is what we see is what we're going to get, with very little variation. Likewise, in this situation, should it be something we want to approve.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Murad?
Another inquiry about the conditional zoning, Amy. If we don't like this plan, if we approve this with this plan, are we stuck with this plan?
I think you should if you are recommending, and again, it's just a recommendation to city council with a rezoning.
Okay.
So you would take any comments you have with regard to the site plan that's been submitted and say, these are the things we would want to see change that would make it acceptable. And the applicant will take that under consideration. With a conditional rezoning, it has to be something that it's got to be sort of freely offered. It's not the sort of thing that, but the idea is that with this is it gives some assurances, like, I use the example of a, brew pub versus a Walgreens,
Right.
that, everybody's kind of upfront with what you're going to get and that it can be tied to that.
And if we were to tell the applicant we wanted to change things about this plan and he's not willing to accept those changes,
Then it's not
Well,
conditional.
now's the time to talk to them about it.
okay.
Well,
All right.
procedurally.
I want to hear from the public.
If I can address your question also, Mr. Commissioner, procedurally, you can indicate that you're recommending approval with these conditions or denial. If you recommend approval with conditions, if we then go to the city council, as a developer, when we're in front of the city council, we're cognizant of the fact of the recommendation that was made with conditions. We can agree to accept those conditions as part of the conditional zoning agreement, or we can say we accept part of them, reject others, or we can reject all of them. And then based upon that, then the city council will make its decision on whether to approve or deny the rezoning request. So you can attach conditions to your recommendation, and then we can accept or reject them or suggest something different to the city council, because the condition has to come from us, and the city council can vote on it and say yay or nay. That's typically the procedure that's followed.
Okay.
Open a public hearing.
Okay.
I want to hear from the public.
All right. I'm going to open the public hearing, and I want to hear whoever wants to step up to the microphone first. State your name, city of residence, and you have the floor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Barnett, Planning Commissioners, Ms. Vanson. I'm Dr. Tara Hayes. I'm here with my neighbors, some of whom have lived on Oxford since 1963, and some who moved in as recently as this month. As the form-based code is also on the agenda tonight, and we wish to be recognized as responsible residents and concerned citizens, my neighbors asked me to speak for all of us and ceded to me their 2 minutes apiece. So tonight, I speak on behalf of the Oxford Woodward block in its entirety. I, Tara Hayes of 1021 Oxford, represent Dr. John and Pat Dulong of 959 Oxford, Carl and Jessica Gustafson of 971 Oxford, Marie Baranda Esquire of 983 Oxford, Dr. Mackenzie Austrian of 995 Oxford, Jack and Kathy Guyry of 1009 Oxford, Robert Robinette of 1021 Oxford, Adam Simpson of 1022 Oxford, Diane Cicchini of 1035 Oxford, Elise Caravino of 1036 Oxford, Jason and Melissa Sherman of 1047 Oxford, Georgino Cavanos of 1048 Oxford, Josh and Nikki Sainam of 1059 Oxford, Kamel and Masoon Tato of 1060 Oxford, John Ursu and Sean Breen of 1069 Oxford, Jordan Zook of 1070 Oxford, Katie Giordano of 1080 Oxford, Melanie Stevens of 1083 Oxford, Joel and Nicole Woznicki of 1089 Oxford, Tony Beswick of 1090 Oxford, and Dr. Matt and Leslie Mio of 1118 Oxford. See submitted petition.
Thank you.
Now, doing the math here, 2 minutes for everyone on the block would run us well over an hour. So luckily for all of us, I have wrangled all of these opposition statements into one, and I'm only going to talk for 10 minutes. All right, so in my person, we stand before you tonight to oppose RZ0216, and we ask you to oppose it as well. Deny the rezoning application because current conditions are now even less favorable for rezoning single-family homes to parking than they were in 2014 when the previous petition was unanimously denied. Deny the rezoning application because previous reasons for denial are still, if not more valid today than in 2014. Deny the rezoning application because parking beyond what exists in the Woodward corridor is unnecessary. In addition to the over 300 unutilized spaces currently adjacent to the petitioner, 3 residential homes on Eaton, 1010, 1036, and 1046 have already been rezoned parking district specifically for the petitioner. Deny the rezoning application because development of parking on Oxford contradicts the master plan and is inconsistent with parking precedents for all other businesses in Berkeley's Woodward corridor. Deny the rezoning application because the petitioner has repeatedly failed to fulfill and to comply with its written and verbal agreements, promises, and obligation to the City of Berkeley and its residents. The current conditions for rezoning are even less favorable today. They are less favorable today because, in its own words during the 2014 public hearings and city council meetings, the petitioner admitted to aggressively pursuing the homes at 960, 972, 984, and 996 Oxford because it was blocked from developing its master plan consistent properties on Eaton. Thanks to the tireless efforts of the City of Berkeley on its behalf and the resulting collaborative agreement, this is no longer the case. The petitioner is not blocked from developing Eaton. The petitioner is supported. Yet the petitioner has failed to submit the Eaton site plan stipulated by the agreement executed in April 2016 and scheduled to be filed, quote, as soon as possible. It is nearly October. According to the petitioner's attorney, no progress has been made on Eaton because Eaton and Oxford will be developed together. We would emphasize that although Oxford has not been rezoned for parking, a site plan has been submitted, while despite Oxford rezoning and the collaborative agreement timeline, an Eaton plan still has not been submitted. 2, the conditions are less favorable because the 1010 Eaton lot was completed in 2015 and would provide the petitioner with additional parking spaces if it were not signed no parking. See submitted photos. 3, the conditions are less favorable because the 2015 valet ordinance enabled the petitioner to create a working parking plan to alleviate its parking concerns. 4, the conditions are less favorable because according to its current valet parking plan, a plan submitted in substitution for the now defunct Charter 1 agreement, under which the petitioning business was allowed to open in 2012, the petitioner has a shared parking agreement to park 50 cars at North Point. These spaces owners would provide the petitioner with an excess of parking if the business or its valet would use them. They have not, and they do not. See submitted photos. 5. The conditions are less favorable because, despite the petitioner's desire not to be dependent on shared parking, the petitioner is not new to shared parking. The petitioner was allowed to open this business only because of a shared parking agreement, and each of the businesses under the Union Joint's auspices shares parking with other businesses in its area. Of particular note is the Fenton Firehouse's shared parking with both the church and the police station next door. A single business cannot be allowed to upend precedent for a want. The petitioner has demonstrated the ability to collaborate in other cities and must do so in Berkley too. 6. Sorry, I jumped ahead. The conditions are less favorable because, as predicted, the popularity of the bar and restaurant has declined. Posted hours are now 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. rather than the bar's closing time, and its peak hours are 6:30 to 9:30. The business itself, its own south adjacent lot, and the streets surrounding the area are empty by 10 p.m. at the latest. Despite the decision to keep the parking at 1010 Eaton and the North Point lots unavailable to customers, and yet even during the business's peak hours and special events, parking on Eaton and Oxford is readily available to residents. Again, see submitted photos. 7, the conditions are less favorable because history is the greatest predictor of future action. The petitioner not only has failed to fulfill the written and verbal agreements and promises made to the city of Berkley and its residents since it opened in 2012, but also has failed to fulfill the written and verbal agreements and promises made at and since the previous rezoning petition in 2014. Despite being afforded every opportunity by the city of Berkley and its residents, the petitioner continues to act in bad faith and against the best interests of Berkley community as a whole. Number 8, I did get there. The conditions are less favorable because RZ0216 will not solve a parking problem because one has been manufactured to seem as if, when in fact it does not exist. It will, however, create one. RZ0216 will destroy a neighborhood the petitioner's vacant home policy is currently damaging. RZ0216 will provide an excess of 100 spaces to a single business owner. RZ0216 will make possible the expansion of this business, the eradication of the 26 parking spaces adjacent to the business, an increased seating capacity at the restaurant, and subsequently a need for more parking and more of the same malfeasance. Deny RZ0216 not only because the conditions are less favorable now, but also because the previous reasons for denial still remain valid. Significantly, the 5 criteria considerations for rezoning still support maintaining single-family residential zoning on all of Oxford. Criterion 1, the current zoning and land uses in the Oxford-Woodward area are not only still suitable for single-family homes, but also highly desirable. All of the homes listed for sale since 2014 sold within days of listing, and a new build on a formerly vacant lot, which itself sold instantly, was purchased before listing and construction were even completed. As a whole, according to Realtor.com and the National Association of Realtors, Berkley, Michigan is one of the top 20 hottest selling markets in the nation. Criterion 2. While in 2014 there was already enough land developed and or rezoned as parking in the area, with the rezonings of 1036 and 1046 Eaton in 2016 and the completion of the 1010 Eaton lot in 2015, there is now more than enough land developed or rezoned for parking in the area. Criterion 3. Rezoning additional land in the Oxford-Woodward area still would not promote the long-term sustainability of the neighborhood, nor follow the master plan objectives. Criterion 4. Alternative options that provide certainty, continuity, and consistency still exist and are still preferable to rezoning single-family homes on Oxford. Criterion 5. Local and national trends still indicate developments focused on increasing walkable and green communal spaces and decreasing parking areas. Furthermore, the master plan still designates the Oxford block as single-family residential. The master plan still outlines rezoning of this magnitude as too severe in a residential neighborhood. Petitioner parking on Oxford will still landlock the current and future businesses at this Woodward location. The multimodal transportation plan still describes the Catalpa to 11-mile corridor as a parking-rich environment, with lots filled almost to 70% during business hours and standing empty and available after and before peak. The parking use study still states that there is no demonstrable need for additional parking at Oxford or in the Woodward district. The best neighborhoods still include small intermittent parking lots, not great expanses of pavement. The petitioner's proposed parking is still for neither a library nor an office park, but for a bar and restaurant whose peak hours correspond to times when residents, their families, and children are home. Replacing residential homes and their yards still negatively impacts the environment and drainage system by eliminating green space, creating pavement runoff, and exacerbating flood scenarios. Parking on Oxford still undermines the principle that Berkeley's neighborhoods are its foundation and single-family residents the way to maintain the traditional neighborhoods. The deed restrictions on these properties still make it unlawful to develop the Oxford properties as parking. Tax revenue on residential property is still significantly larger than on a parking lot. Parking lots lower property values 20 to 30%. Residential homes are still the greatest benefit to Berkeley as a whole. The Woodward Avenue Complete Streets is still underway. Public transit is still on its way. The Berkeley community still requires and deserves more cooperation and less concrete. Deny RZ0216. The conditions for rezoning Oxford are even less favorable today. The criteria for denial in 2014 are more valid now. A want is still not a need. The city's shared parking requirements, as made clear before the business opened, as well as the subsequent decisions, have been and remain practicable, fair, and consistent. Vote nay on RZ0216. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I guess we...
Hi, my name is Lori Robertson. I live at 1964 Dorothea. I just have a question. I've been following some of the Vincetta parking issues. I happened to watch the 1010 Eaton meeting. It was kind of an accident, but it was very interesting and how they were proposing it. I'm curious kind of how they got to this point. So Jack Marwell was my neighbor on on Dorothea, so we knew him and, we would go to his business. So when it changed from the garage to the restaurant, it had to be rezoned, right? So wouldn't the parking have been discussed at that point?
I got to defer to Ms. Vanson on it because we never saw it.
Right, so restaurants are allowed in the Woodward district, so a rezoning would not have been required. The applicant did not have enough property abutting his building or on his property, as we've talked about, as far as how many parking spaces. Berkeley City Code does provide for shared parking agreements. We have them all over the city. And that was something that they had exercised, and they had a signed parking agreement, which was then the bank was Charter One. And so that enabled them to have it. Because Charter One is not where Westbourne is, it's upstream on Woodward, I did ask that at least for the first few months, they have some sort of valet to get people there or some sort of way to communicate to their customers that Charter One was available to them.
So when they submitted a site plan, it didn't have the necessary parking?
They don't need to submit a site plan if it's going within an existing building.
Okay. It just feels like a step was skipped somewhere, and it's just been years of discussing parking. So I was just curious. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions from anybody?
Hi, Rachel on Oxford. I just actually want clarification of what Amy Vanson just said. If it changes from one type of business to another, does it not need to come in front of Planning Commission for approval?
It does not need to go in front of the Planning Commission.
So who approves it?
I would sign the business license for zoning compliance.
So you make the decision all on your own without it going to the Planning Commission. When you go from one type of business to another, it's all up to you.
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Dean Smith.
Amy, that should be clarified, that if it's within a permitted use, it's already at the property.
Right.
Oh, yes.
It's not just a discretionary.
Correct. You look at the list of what's allowed in the district, and then you decide, does that fit in? If it doesn't fit in, then it could go to the ZBA for an interpretation of use, or you say, nope, that won't go there, or you look at a rezoning. But restaurants are allowed in Woodward. Repair shops were only allowed as a conditional use. So it was actually going from a principal permitted use, or going from a conditional use to a principal permitted use.
Right.
So that's the same. I'm asking because I don't know.
A conditional use requires planning commission and city council approval before it can be okayed. A principal permitted use, provided that it's allowed in that district, it's something that can be administratively approved.
So it's a principal permitted use. Is that what you're saying?
A restaurant would be in the
in that
Woodward
district.
district.
In that district.
Yes.
In that district? Okay. Just trying to
So-
get clarification
So
on that.
if, say, Vincetta Garage were to close and somebody wanted to open a mechanic shop, they'd have to come before us to get a conditional use agreement or approval. Vincetta Garage was probably grandfathered in because it had
Correct.
been there forever.
Okay.
If the
actual-
restaurant
the
wanted.
actual
right.
repair gar- the,
Or repair shop,
Yeah.
yeah. So if, for example, a business closed on Woodward that's like, say, like a market or a store, and somebody wanted to open some other retail establishment, different type of retail, or even like a beauty salon or something like that, if that use is permitted in that district, they just file a business application and
Okay, you understand why I'm asking this question?
Sure,
Because
yeah.
back in 2012, I think it was when Vincetta Garage opened, if all of this parking would have been taken into consideration by whoever was approving, Amy, this plan, I mean, we wouldn't be at this point with all the frustration with all the neighbors, and we probably, I'm guessing, somebody would have solved this before we would have got to this point, right? I mean, logically speaking, this is what should have happened.
they came in with a parking agreement with
Parking
Charter One
agreement,
Bank.
Charter
They had
One.
parking at that time.
So they had it.
Time they had adequate parking, so
They had adequate parking, yeah.
They elected to come to our town with a shared parking agreement. No one
Gotcha.
forced them to come here. They came here on their own accord, and they complied with our rules. So
Okay.
there was no problem.
There was no problem.
At the
that
time. At the time, gotcha. And how long was that original parking agreement with Charter, whoever it was, one?
I don't know.
I don't
It's
recall.
done and over with, is that the
Yeah.
case?
Yes.
Okay, I gotcha. Thanks for answering my questions.
Thank you.
Patty Curtis on Kenmore. Just one question to clarify what Rachel just brought up. It's not required that you bring forward a change of use for this particular location from a garage to a restaurant. However, is it recommended, is it possible that, or has it commonly been practiced that that type of change of use would normally have been brought before the Planning Commission, even as an advisory committee, or some other committee other than having it unilaterally approved right in the Planning Department's office, considering the parking problems? I mean, I read articles back to 2011 that indicated that everybody knew 64 parking spaces were required for this particular business, yet it just kind of slid right through. I guess I'm understanding whether, even though you're not, or I would like to understand, even though you're not required to bring it forward, would you normally, or would it be recommended by this commission that you bring this type of issue forward before approving it? I mean, just so that everybody's on the same page and this type of thing doesn't happen again.
If
Your-
they had insufficient parking when they came before the city, then we would have probably looked at it.
Well, everybody knew it had insufficient parking when it
No.
came
No,
it
before the
didn't.
city.
No, they had a
Mr.
parking
Chairman.
agreement.
Yeah.
Ms. Vanson.
What I advised Vincetta Garage of when their architect came in is, you don't have enough parking, you can look at a shared parking agreement. If that can't work, you can go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. They had a shared parking agreement. It was upstream on Woodward. Like I said, we do have shared parking agreements in the city, none this large, but there is nothing in the ordinance that says shared parking up to a point or shared parking as a percentage. We allow shared parking, and quite frankly, the business was only going to be opened at nighttime, and the bank was going to be closed at nighttime. So it did seem to be the best use of parking. The ordinance does allow for that. Vincetta Garage as a restaurant is allowed in the Woodward District, similar to Patrick J's, going from Hiller's Market to Patrick J's. The commission saw that because you didn't see, they had a
Facade
facade
change.
change. That's right, I was
So
thinking of the addition to the back.
We would have seen this if they were doing major changes to the facade of the building.
They didn't.
It would have come before us.
Are there not, I mean, it seems like the facade has changed in terms of
They
its,
just cleaned it up.
there's outdoor seating, that's a facade
That
change.
And
did-
the
that
planning
did come
commission
before
saw
us.
that.
We did see
The
that.
planning commission, and, okay, so it did appear before you. Could at that time, before, because I assume that it appeared before you, before they actually opened the business and installed this? Or did the outdoor seating approval come after they were already open?
After.
That was after.
After they were already
They were
open?
told
Yes.
that they had to come before us for that.
Okay,
And when we reviewed it, we said no serving of food
outside,
outside.
okay. I guess sorry, and thank you for indulging
Mr.
me.
Chairman?
I just didn't understand.
Mr. Martin?
Every district, there's a dozen zoning districts in Berkeley, some communities
Right,
have.
I mean, I understand all that.
Every district has permitted uses.
Mhm.
They also, many of them have conditional uses that come
Yeah.
before us or ZBA. So the Vincetta Garage restaurant was a permitted use in that zoning. There's no reason to come to anybody, because
Right.
it's allowed. The problem was parking, which was resolved with the shared parking agreement.
Okay,
So that's what happened.
thank you. I think I understand how it
Good.
happened now.
Thank
Ju-
you.
Just so the record's clear, we did approve a rezoning of the lot immediately behind the restaurant, I believe, to parking, and we also
It was,
approved.
From
parking.
parking.
Was
From
parking.
parking,
Well, we approved a
Parking to
conditional
food park.
use of part of that lot for an auxiliary building,
Yes.
the prep kitchen and
Yep.
some storage.
Yeah, and a permitted use in that district is also parking. So, because
Oh,
there is some
okay.
parking next to that lot that we rezoned. Just like the lot to the south of the building, I think, is still Woodward District. It's not
Correct.
zone parking. So if they were to choose to build on that lot or sell that lot and have somebody build on it, they could.
Hi, John Long, 2060 Kipling. I would, just an observation, it doesn't directly impact me, obviously I'm on the other side of town, but I would just make the statement that it wouldn't make sense for the Northland area to stop the shared parking agreement. You know, that lot is empty after business hours, so it's a stream of income coming in for the building owners as well as the shared parking with the T-Mobile building. So the argument that they would be held hostage doesn't seem to me that it has a lot of weight, especially, you know, if that lot was busy, you know, from morning till night, you know, perhaps that would cause some strife. But, you know, that building is empty after business hours. You know, there are doctors in there, so that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
My name is Louis Bishop. I live at 1404 Eaton. I drive down Eaton Road every day. I drive down Oxford a lot. I drive down Catalpa. I drive down Woodward. My observations have been that the parking at the donut cutter is being utilized. Unless my vision is failing me, I hardly ever see any cars in the North Point lot. So, you know, I was very surprised to learn tonight that they have 50 spaces rented or to be utilized at North Point, because I just don't ever see hardly any cars in there after, you know, like 5 or 6 o'clock. So that I wanted to point that out. So it appears to me that the 50 spaces in North Point are rarely being utilized, and perhaps that's what the what the Vincetta garage should be using.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Barbara Morris. I live on Wiltshire. I just have a couple questions. Going back to the reasoning that a business would come to the Planning Commission, if there's a change in footprint, do they have to come to the Planning Commission before they can do business?
For the building?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this case, there was no change in
No
footprint?
change in the
No
footprint.
change in the footprint.
Okay. And for the record, I also am opposed to encroaching further into the residential lots.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's close the public hearing. What is the desire of the Planning Commission at this juncture?
Let me find it, Mr. Chairman. We have a very thick packet tonight. To quote Mr. Murad, I was very surprised to see Vincetta Garage come back to us after what occurred a year or two ago. That being said, I would like to make a motion to deny the rezoning RZ 0216, or recommend denying to the city council.
I'll support that.
Support. Is there any discussion on the motion? Ms. Vanson, call the roll.
Tangeri,
Yes.
Shadle,
Yes.
Martin Smith,
Yes.
Murad,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Dean Smith,
Yes.
Barnett.
Yes. This will go to council. Thank you. This will go to council. I don't know which.
The 3rd.
The
October
3rd.
3rd.
This will be on Monday's agenda for city council. Next Monday, I guess it is. This coming Monday.
Mr. Chair, for the record.
And it has to go to 2 readings.
Right. For the record, I'd like to state that the reason why I'm denying this is I want to see them complete the Oxford parking lot. See what the impact is to the neighborhood.
Eaton
Or
parking
Eaton, I'm sorry, Eaton parking lot. See what the impact is to the neighborhood. And maybe then all they have to do is leave some spaces from the donut cutter, like the gentleman said. I live on Dorothea. So if I drive out onto Woodward in the evening, I see that lot full all the time. So I know that lot is being used. And my suspicion is it's the employees using it and not the customers. So, but that's my feeling on it. So
Okay.
that was my reason to support the denial.
Okay. All right.
I'd like to add,
Mr. Richardson.
there never has been an agreement with the city to proceed simultaneously with 2 projects. There was an agreement to proceed, as far as I know, with Eaton. That has proceeded extremely slowly. I'm not unsympathetic to the desires of the owner of Vincetta Garage. However, none of the reasons put forward tonight in favor of rezoning have anything to do with the criterion that we need to apply to a rezoning request. And I voted against it 2 years ago because I thought that the request then was way too drastic. It was overkill. It was putting too much concrete into the area that already had adequate parking, and too much parking under the control of one owner. But more importantly, it would really drastically change the character of the community. And I just saw no compelling reasons on the other side of the coin to make those kind of drastic changes. I still feel that way. That's why I voted the way I did tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Tangeri.
Even if we had decided to make a positive recommendation to the city council, I would note that we'd still be requiring them to work on these renderings and the site plan. The rendering doesn't even show the apartment building that's behind the parking lot. So it seems to me like it's kind of a generic rendering that was produced and for maybe even some other purpose and provided as part of this application. So there were a lot of levels on which I wasn't comfortable with this.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Vanson, we can move on.
Okay. Item number 4 is discussion. Thank you. Discussion to amend the 2015 master plan amendment related to future residential land use to include a discussion recap of the open house held on August 23rd, 2016, and a determination of next steps by the Planning Commission.
Well, first of all, I want to thank all the people who came out to the open house. It was very interesting. We got some interesting comments. We got some interesting feedback. Some people expressed their concerns about where we're going and what we're all doing, and I think every member up here has taken all of that into consideration. And I have to say, after getting a lot of stuff in this packet from you folks, I have digested a lot of it, and where we stand right now is that we have some information. We still want to seek a little bit more. We're not there where we're comfortable enough to sit down and begin writing anything yet. To be honest with you, I'm not sure exactly when we're going to get there, because there's a couple things that we need to look at. And one of the things I mentioned to Ms. Vance, and I don't know whether you didn't cover it. Did you cover it in your memo about this?
I don't know what you're going to say next. What are you going to say next?
I'm going to say about the additional study.
The assessment?
Yeah.
The assessment, okay.
Yeah.
I would like to push for that if that's a possibility. I don't know how the rest of the Planning Commission feels about it. This would be done with Michigan Municipal League, right?
No, it's the
MISTA.
MISTA would,
Yeah.
yes, they would help pay for a target market needs assessment for
Yeah.
housing.
Yes.
They don't actually do the study. They have
somebody
firms
that
do
does.
that, but
Professional
they would
people
meet
who
the cost.
can do
yes.
that. Yes.
They would. It's a
And that's
one-to-one match.
And that's something that I would like to see us consider. The other thing is we not want to get before the seniors, and we want to get before the high school. I want to get into the schools a little bit. And I'm going to ask you for one more. We know Beaumont's doing a whole heck of a lot. Do we have any indication from Beaumont Hospital as to housing, and because they changed staff and with the growth that's going on, have we had any conversations with Beaumont Hospital on any of this kind of stuff?
Not lately. I don't know if the city manager's office. I know previous a
know
previous city manager had a contact in her, through her office.
Yeah.
I can check and see if there's been conversation.
Yeah, I'm curious about that, because they're our biggest neighbor here with employment and people coming and going and all that, and they've got a lot going on over there, and they're going to be doing a lot more building. And with the collaboration with Oakland University and the med school, it's probably going to develop into a large research. They're doing research now, but it could grow a whole lot more in research capabilities going in on this whole area. And I'd like to, if we could get some information on that. And then maybe we'll be able to get a better handle of where we're all going. Plus, there's also the infrastructure study going on with council.
Yes.
Yeah, and we need a little bit of information on that, because we'll see how that's going to impact all of us in this city in many ways. So we've got to look at that aspect too. As most of you know, the infrastructure of the city is probably approaching 100 years old. and the water mains and what have you are all in interesting conditions right now, and sewers and light. I heard somebody make a comment, and then I'll let some of my other commissioners talk. Somebody made the comment with all the new housing that's going up that there's additional loads of water being distributed into the mains and sewers, and they're drawing water. When I moved to Berkley in 1955, this city had about almost 25,000 residents in it. You can imagine 25,000 residents using water every day and flushing toilets and everything else that goes on, washing dishes, washing clothes, and all that. And you look at our population today of about 16,000 roughly. I don't know. I think there's a similar amount of water going down the drain today, and maybe a little bit less. I'm not sure. But, of course, that was a few years back, too, so the system is getting there. So I bring that up. So other comments from the Planning Commission tonight? Mr. Murad.
And the city's been doing a lot of work on the sewer systems to repair and line and
Reline them all.
reline them to make them more reliable. So, but it's more the water supply that probably is our bigger concern. Yeah, I thought the open house was very interesting. It was good. It was wonderful to see the turnout of people. The feedback was good also. So, like you, I think there's some things we need to put in place first before doing anything else. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Shado.
Yes, I too very much enjoyed the open house. It was a very long night for many of us and many of you, and appreciate all of you that came. And frankly, a very high percentage of folks that attended the open house did complete the comment sheets, which was very, very helpful, I think. And I know that many of you have spent hours upon hours upon hours of collecting additional information, which has been received by all of us. And I think there's a lot of good comments in there. I do want to correct one thing. I think at the open house, I made a statement at one point about not having an email concerning the open house. That was absolutely erroneous. The city did send out actually multiple emails and had announced it via electronic means. So I just want to apologize to those that I had mentioned that to. That was an incorrect statement. I think we are trying to make some strides in that area. I do know that many of you feel very passionately about that. I think many of us feel that, know that, hear that just about every other day at this point by one means or another. What I think you hear tonight is let's move forward. It is not going to be a quick fix. But, you know, we do want to go to the seniors, talk to the seniors. To continue the conversation is what I'd like to do. I'd like to continue the conversation. I think we've got some groups that are extremely motivated. I think we have some groups that are limited in their access to things or ability to come to meetings or whatnot. And I'd like to hear from them. So if that means we have to go to them, then we go to them. I think every voice is important. Regardless this process, if in fact we want to change the master plan, it's not a simple process. I think we've been through what that flow chart looks like, and I think we've distributed that as well. But that's where I stand. I appreciate, again, the time and effort for folks. Continue to say to you, be involved, put in your applications for the Planning Commission.
ZBA or other boards?
ZBA, any board, Parks and Rec. But I appreciate that. I hear you, and I continue to be very open to the process.
Mr. Tangiri?
Yeah, I also enjoyed the open house, and I thought it was interesting. We got a lot of great feedback and good comments. I appreciated the time and effort that certain citizens put into this survey, and I think that in particular, they asked a question about how best to connect with citizens, and we got information there that I think is pretty actionable, and should be actionable right away. Because really, a lot of these things are pretty low cost solutions. In general, I feel like we're at a point where it makes sense to gather as much information as we can. The target market assessment is a useful tool that a lot of communities around us have used to figure out where they are, and it could very well wind up telling us that we have what we need, and it could tell us something else. But performing that target market assessment makes a lot of sense. It gives us really hard data that we can use going into the future. In general, I think that we're going to keep having the conversation, and I do want people to remain engaged, obviously, and I want people to continue to come to the meetings and talk to us and everything, but I also don't want them to feel like the onus is on them to move things forward. I feel like we need to obviously be putting our best foot forward and making progress on our own, and they can obviously inform us as we move forward, but really the onus should be on the city and the Planning Commission to make sure that things move forward and information gets gathered as needed, and that we do the right thing. But like I said, I obviously stay involved, and we do want to hear from you. But I don't feel like it should be the responsibility of the citizens to push the process. They should be involved in pushing it as much as they want to be.
Mr. Dean Smith, anything?
Well, just to kind of pile on, I had a blast at the open house. I heard from a lot of people that I know and met a lot of new people, and pretty much reinforced that the edges of the city, the border roads, are possibly a good idea for higher density housing. Core city, mostly single family homes. I bounce that around with thinking about affordable housing. What's affordable housing? What's too big of a house? What's too small of a house? And as I wander around some other communities, I see in neighborhoods, every now and then there's a duplex. And that seems to create more green space than two big single-family homes. I think there's a lot of things we need to think about and talk about in a kind of a non-aggressive, just an analytical way before we jump to conclusions. One of the things that really jumped out at me, we got a PDF with the comments. We got several PDFs with the comments. And I scanned through them, and I really saw nothing that was surprising, but I looked at comments that people had made. And one person, and if I got this right, it was a 72-year-old person who said, we need to combine head and heart to continue the success and excellence of our community. I thought that was the best comment anybody could make. It was also something that I'm seeing tonight. I'm seeing we're all going to the same place. We're looking to make Berkley continue to be one of the top places to live. As we get older, things change, and that needs assessment. Certainly I'm interested in. But we made some good headway. And opening the dialogue, all that tells me is we need to do more open houses. We need to, and we're talking about communication. I'm like a Luddite. I figured out how to use Facebook, but I can't change my cover picture. Just
And
some
we
stuff I
really
don't
wish you
get.
would, quick.
I've gotten feedback. They say, Dean, you were 12 when that picture was taken. But the email blast, I didn't know what an email blast was, but all I know is every day I look at my phone and I find out that there's water main work on this street and there's a street closure here. So I'm getting email blasts. The city can send out an email blast saying, hey, there's going to be an open house on date X. This is what we want to talk about. Bring people in. We can do a better job on our website of posting things. These meetings are on the website. If you want to see what goes on in a meeting, it's there. Meeting agendas are posted. So we're part of the way there. What we need to do is finish the delivery. But the thing I want to really just add to everybody else, the work that was done to get the surveys, to compile them, to pull together the information, that's stellar. And that's a lot of time and effort. And for those of you that did, I really appreciate what you put together. It's educational. It helps get my head pointed in the right direction. And all we can do is get better from here.
I've heard from that side of the table. Anybody over here on this side of the table want to make any further comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Martin Smith.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add. Those are very good comments from that side of the table.
We are the smarter side.
Sure.
Never disputed it.
I also enjoyed the experience, well, I don't know about joy, but I was enthused by the experience of the 4 hours of the open house. And I don't think it'd be a disaster to have a second one. There was a lot of comments that people couldn't make it, and I'm glad that I believe all of us were there.
Yep.
That's good. That's good that we all made it. I know I talked for 4 hours, and I want to thank the two people who brought me a cup of water. That was very nice of you. If you were out there, thank you very much. I was losing my voice. I found that the conversations I had were kind of split 1/3 into three things. One of it, of course, is the multifamily idea that we had thrown out, and that's what kind of started this whole thing. But there was a lot of concern about the big box construction,
Yes.
single-family construction issues. And then, of course, the other third is communications, which is, okay, well, that's heading in the right direction, but there's a lot of, it is what it is. So I think it was almost 1/3 each of those three topics.
I would agree with that.
And I found that interesting. Also interesting, Huntington Woods is doing a visioning session on aging in place. I will be there. I signed up. And, they're right next door. And they see the demographics change, and they're looking for input and how it may affect us. So I will be there. And in the future is also an open house. So I look forward to that as well.
That's Thursday night, isn't it?
That's tomorrow night.
Oh, tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, yeah.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night.
And the open house is in mid-October, so.
Well,
Mr. Richardson, do you have anything to add to all this?
Yes. I probably talked to 20 to 25 people at some depth during the open house. I'm sure there are others that were listening in. I found it to be a very positive experience, both at the open house and outside of the open house. The citizens involved in this process many of them have really done their homework and have provided us with relevant and valuable information as well as feedback. So it's helped us. It's helped us do our job. And I found that to be true at the open house. The only bad moment I had is when I turned around and I discovered Mr. Tangeri had disappeared, but he came back. So what were my conclusions about it? Probably 2/3 of the discussions I had were about the big box houses. Concerns about houses being too big for the lots, infringing on the privacy of neighbors, and so forth. A bit of surprise, perhaps, but certainly relevant to what we do here. So I think at some point our commission should revisit, perhaps, or just review building activities here in Berkeley. Have another look at the zoning requirements that pertain currently to new construction. And I'm not saying change anything. I'm just saying it should be on our table at some point, I think for a discussion. And we would want to look and see what, maybe after or in conjunction with this assessment, because these houses are being built in response to market demand. Okay, so that's 2/3 of my discussion. The other third had to do with the zoning changes under consideration. I would say that one or two people I talked to were flatly against any change whatsoever. Leave Berkeley exactly the way it is. One other person I talked to believed that significant changes should occur to expand housing opportunities for senior citizens. This was a senior citizen who was adamant about that. In between, most of the comments fell in between those two poles. And if I could try to summarize what those comments were, I didn't find any blanket opposition to, to some degree of expanding multifamily housing in Berkeley. I think what people were adamant about is that any such expansion should be confined to discrete, identified, and appropriate areas along the major thoroughfares, along Woodward near the transit stop that was mentioned by a few people. And there were some interesting ideas, too, brought up about perhaps converting some industrial sites along 11 Mile to loft apartments. I thought those were interesting comments, interesting thing to look at. I've also taken the liberty of looking at master plans from surrounding communities. I've looked at Ferndale, Pleasant Ridge, Birmingham, Southfield, and Royal Oak, and all of those master plans identify a need to develop housing alternatives within those communities. Pleasant Ridge, even ironically enough, has a form-based code that applies to their little itty-bitty downtown area. Down on Pleasant Ridge. Where is it? I don't know. In any case, I think what all of those plans had in common was that they did talk in terms of identified areas, along Woodward in the case of Huntington Woods and Pleasant Ridge, along 9 Mile in the case of Ferndale. So I guess the whole tenor of my discussions and my research is that you don't ignore this issue. You address it, but it may be best to try to kind of look intensively at specific areas that are perhaps appropriate for this kind of housing and investigate how we might have housing in those areas. I frankly saw no support for allowing multifamily housing throughout single-family residential neighborhoods. That support just didn't, with the possible exception of the elderly gentleman who wanted senior housing, that support simply was not there, and it doesn't appear to have been the approach taken by other communities. So in closing, I would say we do need to keep studying this. I'm in favor of additional open houses. In fact, we've had requests from people who couldn't attend the last open house to schedule another open house or two to give more people an opportunity. And I think that's a good idea. These are very important questions we're talking about, and this is a 10 to 20 year time frame that we're looking out, and we can and we should take our time to try to do the planning function correctly. So that's all I've got to say.
Ms. Pop, anything tonight?
No, the open house was fascinating. It was good, and I agree with what everybody has said. The multiple homes, multiple units are on the outside periphery of the city, on the borders, possibly approaching Beaumont. And single-family homes, the majority, that's what people want. And there were a few people that just said, don't change a thing. And I agree, we need to have more of the open house situations.
Mr. Murad, do you want to add anything?
Everybody's pretty much covered.
Yeah.
What can be said, you know, I had quite a few conversations with a lot of people. Some of them positive, some of them, you know, like Mr. Richardson said, some people were against any changes. You know, I've been open about my opinion or feelings that, you know, I've lived here 30 years, I love living here. I'm getting the point that I know within the next 5 years or so, I'm not going to want to own a home anymore. And I'd like to see some sort of development take place. And I was saying that to one woman at the open house, and she said, well, it's too bad, you're going to have to move. You know, and that's not the attitude I want to see from people that I've lived with my whole, you know, for most of my life.
Right.
So I hope that something comes about in the next few years, and I have no problem with it being on the perimeter of the city or in our downtown area. But I think that, you know, we're lucky we live in some place. I think Ms. Hayes, I think when she was talking about the Vinsetta Garage, that nationally Berkeley's in the top 20, I think you mentioned. Pretty nice to know that we live someplace that a lot of people would love to live here. And I think that's part of what's happening with these big houses is I think there's a lot of younger people, I know I'm not one of them, that would like to have a big house, lots of space, you know, and that's why the builders are building those houses. So, you know, I always kind of played with the idea. I've owned 2 homes in Berkeley, and my first home was about 900 square foot, little 2-bedroom, you know, starter home, and I always thought that'd be a great place to move back into when I retire or as I get older. That house doesn't exist anymore because somebody bought it, tore it down, and put up a big house on the lot. So, you know, yeah, it is sad. My kids were crushed. That was the house that, you know, when they were born, they were brought home to. So, you know, like to see where it all plays out. And I'm happy that I'm involved in it. So.
Okay. Thank you. And I want to thank everyone for the participation. And I think all of us up here realize that Berkeley is a great place in this entire country. We're rated in like 28th in the nation. And we sure as heck want to maintain that status, and we don't want to destroy it. And I don't think anybody here wants to destroy it. but we just need to be sure that we can update areas where we think it needs to happen. And I would say most of what we're looking at is on the perimeter of the city at this juncture of time. And we'll see where that goes. I do have a question for you, Ms. Vance. The new housing that's going in, most of our lot sizes are, width-wise, is about 40 feet. Is that true?
The city's 40, yeah.
40 is the number. And I'm wondering, and I don't know how the rest of you feel about the setbacks that we have on 40-foot lots, when you start looking at these bigger houses going on that 40-foot lot. I was looking at my house yesterday. I took the whole day off to digest all this. And I was looking at the houses on both sides of me. Now, I have a 52-foot lot, and most of the houses in my block are 52 foot. And I'm looking at, when I start shrinking it, on the one side, I'm 5 feet, and then I believe it's 12 feet to the house because the driveway's there. And then the house sits there.
Okay.
And on my other side, on the south side, I have the driveway, which is about 12 feet, and then there's the 5 foot to the next house. And I'm beginning to wonder, as we start going higher in the air, we have, 30 foot, these new houses are 30 feet?
Yeah, 30 halfway measured between the peak and the
Halfway
eave.
is 30, yeah. And I'm just wondering about some of that. I'm starting to question some of that on the narrower lots.
Yeah.
And I think all of us are a little bit. And I think it's something we're going to have to look at.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Dean Smith.
Just to remind you, we were doing the Greenfield District. We spent a lot of time looking at building heights and setbacks and
Yes, we
what's
did.
appropriate. That's a comment that was brought up a couple times during the open house. And, okay, you're going to build a tall house. Do you need to set it further back from the property lines? And that's
what
something
that's something I'm really,
take a good look at.
I think it needs to be taken, we need to take a good, hard look at.
Yes.
So, is there anyone in the audience that care to address us tonight on anything that we've talked about tonight?
Can we talk about the open house?
You want to talk about open house?
Again, my name is Lori Robertson. I live at 1964 Dorothea. I did attend the open house. I'm kind of surprised that with the additional feedback from the Brar survey, that's not quite enough for you to move forward and make a decision about taking the multifamily language out of the 2015 amendment. I'm kind of wondering what is your number? What is your goal in the terms of responses?
I don't follow you. I'm not quite following you.
So you're saying that we need to have another open house, more
might, yeah.
feedback,
Well,
correct?
I can, some of the feedback we got from people that sent responses into the city that were part of our packet were, they weren't able to attend the open house.
Yes.
They were hoping we'd potentially do something on a weekend day, like on a Saturday or something like that, so that those people that had jobs that couldn't allow them to be there that night, that they could attend also.
I'm curious why the city did not offer your survey online for people that could not attend the open house.
I
decision
think
Do you
the
wanna go
idea
ahead?
of the survey at the open house was to get feedback from people that met with us, saw the data that was being presented to them. So if you weren't at the open house, you didn't have the opportunity to talk to us, listen to what we had to say, see the information that we were sharing.
The data that was presented, it was pitched as this was supposed to be an open dialogue to discuss the next 10 years for future land use. And the conversation was dominated by multifamily and why it was needed in Berkeley. after we had already done the online petition saying, no, we did not want multifamily in the R1D district. We did the handwritten petition that stated we did not want
And I think
multifamily.
I think you've heard us tonight say that we've heard you, that you don't want it.
Well, then why
in
do we
parts
need
of the
another
city.
open house? Why aren't we moving forward?
Because there's other people that want to be able to
How many
share their
responses do you need is what my question is.
It's not that.
It is.
You're asking us to
You're
communicate.
going to keep delaying this until we go away. Here's the problem, we're not going away.
And good. Good. That's what we want, you know.
So how many responses are you looking for? What's your goal?
So what you're saying is, anybody that couldn't make it that night, their opinion doesn't matter.
Absolutely not. That's why BRAR created their own online survey that was much more comprehensive than what you had to
And there
offer.
are a
Don't
lot of
interrupt me. Do not interrupt me. That's why we took the initiative to create another comprehensive online survey so that people that could not attend the open house had a chance to voice their opinions, which they did. Did you look at the survey? It was very comprehensive. You did not.
I did not.
Okay.
And there are a lot
This
of
is-
people, that aren't comfortable with doing things online.
Right. We had 545 responses. Very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable.
Well,
2,036 handwritten petition people. Very uncomfortable. We are falling on deaf ears. I want the audience
No,
to
you're
know
not
that
calling
we are
on deaf
falling on
ears.
deaf ears.
Excuse me. Excuse me. The Planning Commission has the duty to do the full investigation when they feel comfortable, when we feel comfortable, that we have what we need to write an appropriate document that will address the needs of this city. We will do it.
How many
And we
respon-
do not have all of that information. And as I said earlier in the evening, we want to get some input from Beaumont Hospital. We want to get some input from our public works folks because it's going to affect everyone here in this room.
I work at
and all
Beaumont
of us.
Hospital.
And
Their
so
plan
we
is for a
need to
hotel.
get that. So we need to get some information. Now, there's going to be a meeting here with Huntington Woods. Martin Smith's going,
And I may go too.
and we may have a couple people attending that. They're up against the same problem we are, and we want to get their approach and see where they're going. And there's some discussion that we've had that we may do a joint survey. Can I call it a survey or
It'd be a needs assessment. It's not a
assessment?
survey,
Needs
right?
assessment. We may do a joint needs assessment and split the cost.
How many responses or feedback did you have for the 2007 master plan?
I don't have those
You had
counts.
200.
I don't have
How
those
many
counts.
responses did you have for the 2015 amendment? You had 0.
No, we had one.
Berkley Residents Against Residential Rezoning has collected 3,500 signatures since June.
We realize that, but we want to be.
It's not enough. It's not good enough, though, because it's not the answer you want.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Robinson, look,
It's Robertson, it's fine.
we don't do things by plebiscite. We are aware of your efforts. We're aware of the totals. I'd point out there's about 11,000 registered voters in Berkeley.
And we had a huge percentage of them, too.
And your efforts are one factor that we as an advisory body have to weigh, but only one factor. Now, personally, I don't believe in changing the master plan unless you've got something else in mind that you want to put in there.
We're supposed to be amending the
Substitute
amendment,
for
not the master plan.
that
We're supposed to be
goal.
amending the 2015 amendment, not
And
the
that's what we're
Please
talking
don't
about.
interrupt on
Me
both
to
sides
not
here,
interrupt.
please.
That's what we're talking about doing. We're talking about trying to come up with a new language, new goal that would best reflect the interests of the community. And I'm going to suggest to you that that's not really an easy undertaking, and it's not as simple as counting up petition signatures. Not saying your efforts are irrelevant, but it's only one factor.
What are your other factors that you're looking for?
The long-term good of the community, demographic trends, housing market trends, transportation planning, infrastructure planning, the economic future of the region. I'm sure there are others that I'm not thinking of right now.
Haven't we had
there
those
are
discussions, though, in the last 3
many
months?
kinds of factors. Pardon me?
Haven't we discussed some of those things, though, in the last 3 months?
Of course we've discussed them.
Some of it.
Mr. Chairman, I understand the frustration. I do understand the frustration. I do. And there's not a magic number. There isn't a magic number. I think from my personal standpoint, many residents have stood up and said, stop a second, time out, right? Listen to us. We'd like to see the housing assessment. The one that we utilized is old and outdated and was an issue for many people. We want to, we make communication mistakes. We're stepping back, from my perspective, stepping back, let's make sure that we have included everybody that wants to be included. And at this point, I'd rather err on the side of waiting another month or two or whatever it might take to pull those groups together to get that information, so we're not back where we were 3 months ago, to be honest. So I think I absolutely appreciate everything that folks have done, but what I don't want is to be back in the same spot and say, okay, well, but now we don't have whatever piece of data again. Let's move forward together is what I'd like. It might not be at the pace that I want. It may not be at the pace that you want, but I think that what I'd like is for all of us to move forward together and not to look for a magic number or a magic assessment of housing needs. But that's frankly what folks asked us for earlier, and what we provided wasn't sufficient. So from my perspective, it's a matter of, okay, let's make sure that we have listened. Folks have asked for specific data. We have had other folks say, wasn't able to come, like to have the discussion, and we just want to provide that opportunity. And you're right, it might cost us a couple months, it might cost us 6 months, I don't know. But to me, that's the time frame is a small fish, if you will, in the greater good. And I'd rather do that.
So why has there been no movement from the board to collect this information between the open house and now?
We haven't met.
This is our first.
This is our first meeting. It's our first meeting.
So
This
is
is
that
the
part of the
first meeting,
problem?
excuse me, this is the first meeting we've had together to discuss the whole issue.
Excuse
And that's
me.
what we're doing.
So, excuse me, are you allowed to meet twice a month? Are you allowed to ask for a second meeting?
We can have work sessions, but
Have
at
you
this
done
point-
any of that in the last 4 months?
So here's only part of the data.
Have you?
Hang on. Here's only part of the data that
That's
that
not
was
my
given
question.
to us. No, let me finish. Here is part of the data that was given to us. The open house was the end of August, all
Correct.
right? It's a month later. All that data had to be tabulated, collected, and put together and presented to us. I have other stuff that's in email, PDF files, that probably if I printed them out, I think Mr. Smith, you
Last count, when I printed out, 154 comments on that.
So we have to go through all that and absorb all that and read all that. Okay? And it doesn't take a week to do that.
You had a month.
Well, you're talking about, well, we could have met as the second
Had a month
Tuesday
to
of the month.
review the information. How many responses did you get from the open house?
Amy, how many? There were
We got
hundreds.
92 comments.
Did you just say hundreds?
And more that were delivered to the city and included in our packet.
So you
So
had
hundreds.
hundreds?
Hundreds, over 100.
She said 92.
Over 100, okay? We also have, all of us here have jobs,
Oh, I do
Okay.
too. I work 60 hours
Okay.
a week, Mr. Murad.
So do you have
I work
over
60
100
hours a week.
surveys to read?
I
and
had
absorb?
545 that I collated, copied,
Well,
formatted.
Mr. Chair, can I jump in?
congratulations. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You know?
It seems that I have more invested in the city than you do on that board.
That's your opinion.
Absolutely.
Mr. Tangiri?
Can I jump in? I just,
Agenda for multifamily, that's the problem.
pardon me. I think there's a point that's kind of sitting under the surface of this conversation, which is that obviously if we come up with something else, we need the kind of information that we've been talking about gathering. We do have an amendment that was adopted in 2015, however, that from what I've heard tonight, none of us feel is actionable at this point. And I think what's being asked is, why is that amendment not being removed from the master plan prior to the creation of?
Because the the amendment that we create will take that away. That'll supersede it.
It will supersede
And that will
the
go away.
existing amendment.
Yes.
I think that's the
And then-
question that's bubbling under this
And
conversation.
underneath all that, that's exactly what's going to
and I
happen. That's
think-
why that's what I said to the council, and that's what we were going to do, is that we
Right.
were going to create a new amendment. And the attorney spelled it out and said it's going to take some time to do it. And we've only been at it 30 days.
Right. And I think some of the source of trepidation from residents is that they were expecting action on the amendment, to repeal it rather than waiting for it to be superseded by something else. I just think that that's kind of the gap between the residents and the planning commission at this point, is that residents were wondering why it
No,
wasn't
they want
being repealed.
they want an amendment now, is what they want.
Yeah.
It's
And
not
that's
true.
and that's not
About
going to.
multifamily.
We've got to do the full scale.
Clearly, we can't write anything right now. I mean,
No,
it's-
no, we're not
it's-
ready to
it's-
write that thing.
But yeah, I think that the issue of repeal is what's
Well-
in the back of the residents' minds at the moment.
You mentioned doing a study with MISTA. Berkley Citizens United, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they happened to FOIA some information from I think the building department, I'm not even sure. But they asked for all documents received from the City of Michigan State Housing Development Authority or any other state or federal agencies stating that the city has too many single-family houses and should try to change its housing pattern to include more multifamily housing units. They were not able to get this information to Berkley Citizens United because they said the city has not identified or located any existing public records in its possession that would be responsive to the information requested. So we have had the MISTA studies. I think that would be kind of going backward. Go ahead.
I can maybe speak to that. What he's referring to, what the chair is referring to, is a specific. It's called a
Assessment.
The actual term is, I have it written down somewhere.
Target
It's
market
a
assessment
market
for-
needs assessment, roughly. Basically what it does is MISTA has done this with a lot of communities around the state. It's not a general housing study. It's a community-specific housing study. MISTA, they've done it for, I'm trying to think of some of the communities in the area. I think Troy has done it, and target market assessment for housing. It's a very specific study for the community in question. And what it does is it takes the company that performs the analysis on MISTA's behalf is typically Esri. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Esri, but Esri is kind of a data clearinghouse company. It's a little like Dun & Bradstreet. They also produce geographic information system software and other database software. But the target market analysis takes a look at your demographics, your demographic trends, projections, specifically for your community. And in the case of what we're talking about, I guess it would be a collaboration with Huntington Woods to save money. But it's a very community-specific thing. Most of the MISTA data that's available to us at the moment is more generalized to the state or region. So what we're talking about is the possibility of getting a study that would really look deeply at our community specifically and produce a needs assessment that would tell us where we are in relation to what the likely demand over the next couple of decades is going to be based on where we are now and what our trends are looking like into the future, what the projection for the future. So really what we'd be looking at is something that would generate data that we don't have right now. It's not available to us. It could be argued that it's a step that could have been taken previously, but we are where we are, and I think it does make a certain amount of sense to do the target market analysis. I think really probably every community in the state could benefit from that kind of analysis, and a lot of communities in the state probably wouldn't like the results because a lot of communities in the state are shrinking, and we're obviously not in that position. But it would provide us with data that we don't have at the moment, and it would be much more specific to our community and there would be a lot more depth to it than anything that we've had available to us to this point. So that's what we're talking about with regard to MISTA. I happen to know that because I attended SEMCOG University, and they had a whole lesson on the target market analysis studies that they do. So, when I was working for the city of Hazel Park, we were talking about doing one with, in collaboration with Ferndale, Lathrop Village, and Southfield.
Is there a cost for the MISTA study?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know what it is, but yes, there is.
And it doesn't matter whether we did it alone or we got 5 other cities to join us, it's the same cost.
You just did the MISTA study, though, not that long ago, correct?
Not this
So
one.
why would we do it again?
We didn't
Not
do
this
initiative ready.
We've never done it.
Not
Never
according
done
to
this
the FOIA. Not according to the FOIA.
Well.
It was done. So if they say, oh, trends are multifamily houses, and your residents have told you over and over and over again that they don't want that, why would the trend trump the residents?
We don't know that would.
Well, yeah, we don't know what results
We
we'll
don't
get.
know what the
I'm asking
results are.
theoretically.
We don't know what those results are.
Well, then how did you
And
come
I
up
don't know
with?
that we necessarily would, we might.
My sense is that if we were told that there was going to be a great deal of demand for multifamily housing, that we would consider the feedback of the residents that the appropriate places for it are not in the neighborhoods and are on the.
Right.
I mean, obviously, we already have that feedback, but
You would need more feedback, though.
but that's the thing is, it could be that we don't. It could be that we're completely overestimating the demand for,
Sure.
that would help us too,
That
to
would
know
help
that we're
us
completely
also,
overestimating
exactly.
it, because it could be that we
Don't need it.
narrow our focus to a very small area,
Maybe
Well,
and I think that would be helpful too.
Yep.
You know,
how many of you participated with the survey that we sent you, that we asked you specifically to participate with?
I was more interested in the results than actually taking the
As a
survey,
resident,
so
you
I
did not
read
feel the
them.
need to take the survey?
I don't think it's appropriate in my.
Okay. That's actually a decent answer. Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Thank you for being honest, honestly.
No, I don't think it's appropriate for me as
Conflict of
someone in a
interest?
position-making
I agree.
position to
Just said it.
lay out my own personal agenda.
I appreciate that answer. It was candid and honest, and I do appreciate that.
Let me just
That makes
add one
sense.
thing. You know, I said it before, I think. We're not the junior varsity of the city council. We are essentially advisory body.
Correct. To the residents.
And if we don't base our advice on all relevant factors, we're not doing our job. We're not doing the community any good at all. At the end of the day, it is up to the citizens and their elected officials to decide the direction of this community. All we do is advise, but we don't have any kind of plenary power to decide, what kind of housing goes here. We just don't have that power. But we're here to provide guidance, and the will of the people is one thing, but there are other things that are relevant too.
The will of the people are on the top of the org chart. The residents are on the top of the org chart. And you are supposed to be the resident advisory board. The residents have spoken loud and clear what their desires are. And that's fine. It's not good enough. I get it. We'll just keep on pounding the pavement till you have enough. But I do think that your agenda is to delay in the hopes that we will go away.
May I ask,
So
does
this
anybody
is-
up here, excuse me, does anybody up here have an agenda for multifamily?
No.
No.
That's not what I said. I said you want to delay amending the amendment.
No.
No.
That's what it feels like.
I personally
That's what it
just
feels
want to
like.
do the right thing.
We are telling you right now, we have no agenda to delay it. We are going through the process, and this is part of the process. Last month was the beginning of the process.
So when we
You
originally
folks all
brought
saw
that.
pink sheet. This is all part of that
Right.
process.
So when
I looked at
that
you.
first was adopted back, I think it was August of last year,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't just talk about it in July.
Yeah, that's right.
This conversation started months ahead of time.
18 months.
18 months.
In May.
No, 18.
We watched the meetings. That's part of the problem. You do have to go back and watch your meetings because you do contradict yourselves. So this is actually the updated survey. We had sent you initially the 500 response. This is 545. We actually had a few more.
Yeah.
We thought 500 would be sufficient. Clearly, it's not. But feel free when you're not working, if you could look this over, that would be great.
Thank you for your time. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have some comments that's going to make me very unpopular with
That's-
people in this room. First, 500 surveys, that's 3% of the population of Berkeley, so I don't know if you can speak. And I didn't get that
We need
survey.
name and city.
The 3,000 number.
I'm sorry,
that's in-
excuse me, name and city,
Oh, I'm
please.
sorry. My name's Rob Robinette. Live in Berkeley, 1021 Oxford.
Just a minute, he has the floor.
All right.
Thank
so-
you. Let him have the floor.
Yeah, I understand
you.
the passion that these people, that everyone has, right? You want your city to be a great place, but watching all those meetings, and yes, this goes back. I've known about this for a year because I've attended meetings about the form-based code. We can discuss and have these conversations and be civilized human beings. And watching those meetings, I was disgusted and embarrassed to be a citizen of Berkeley, watching the comments coming out of the gallery. Just the way they behaved was embarrassing. I've been waiting 3 months to say that. I don't understand why they don't want to get all the facts and understand that processes take time. I'm appalled. And if you guys want to talk to me afterwards, it's embarrassing. So, sorry. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Paul Shkreli. I live on Royal. The last few months, as I've been attending these meetings, I've taken careful considerations to make sure that everything that comes out of my mouth, everything that I say to someone, is respectful, is supported by empirical data, and is moving in the direction of a positive discourse. I think that's something that a lot of people sometimes forget. I think it's a lot of times it's something that you see a lot of the people in this room, especially Lori, who just spoke, Rachel, Lisa, all these people who are putting in just hours of work into producing something that we can demonstrate to the city, to the Planning Commission, that shows them what it is we're looking for. And aside from all the empirical data, we're also looking for trust. And that's something that, as the citizens have kind of demonstrated since June of this year, it's something that they feel has been depleted, not by the City Council, by the Planning Commission, by developers in the town, by whomever. And I think that when we think about building it together, moving forward together, and having a positive discourse as this situation unfolds, respect is paramount. And as I said, I think previously in a meeting before the Planning Commission, it's something that goes two ways. I think that, as a counterpoint from that gentleman's comments, The disrespect I see flows both ways. I've seen it tonight. I've seen it in the other meetings. And I think when we talk about building trust between the citizens, it's obvious that there's a grave concern coming from the citizenship. And I think that they have very grave concerns regarding the Planning Commission. I don't know if all of those are founded. I think that one of the biggest gestures that the Planning Commission could have engaged in today was, even if it was largely symbolic, would be to exercise some change in the composition of the Planning Commission, especially in the leaders of the Planning Commission. I think that was an absolutely wasted opportunity by the Planning Commission this evening. And I think that, no respect to you, Chairperson, I think that everyone is doing their job. But I think that when we talk about optics and PR and things that we can do to make things look better, even if they aren't getting better, I think that tonight was just an absolutely squandered opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Mr. Shrelkel, who came forward and threw their hat in the ring? I didn't see anybody come forward and volunteer to be an officer.
The way I see it here is,
I was talking and I now finished, so go ahead, answer my question.
thank you. That's wonderful. I came in here today looking for this election, and that wasn't an election. That was essentially everyone's going to continue to do the same job, and if no one else on the Planning Commission wanted to step up and offer themselves in service of the community, then I think possibly it's time for a changing of the guard from the top to the bottom. If you have no interest in serving in a greater capacity, perhaps give it up to someone who will.
That's up to the city council to make appointments to our commission. We don't
And
do that.
I think what you see here in this
to the
room
mayor.
tonight, what you see in this room tonight are the future leaders of the city, and I think that the people in here are motivated, and I think that when it comes time to election to the city, I think that we're going to see some sweeping change, and if that's what happens, then that's what happens. So thank you.
Thank you.
Joshua Hunter, 2240 Thomas. You mentioned the community MISHDA study. So that wasn't done last year when the 2015 amendment was adopted, correct?
No.
No? Okay. I attended the open house, and I looked through the materials, and I found that one of the most common things was that recommended was aging in place. And I think that's reflected in the feedback we've provided to you. Seniors want to age in place. They want to upgrade their homes. They don't necessarily want to move to a multifamily unit. They want to upgrade their homes for future living, but they don't want the neighborhood character disturbed from the home they grew up in. And I think that's abundantly clear. It's seniors. I think all age groups are, they're opposed to what the language is in the 2015 amendment, and they want that removed. Now, I personally wasn't looking, for a amendment draft prepared tonight, but I was hoping for some dates, some milestones. So you mentioned this MISHDA study. I don't know if that's, I personally don't think that's necessary, but I mean, I think it would be helpful to get some dates on the board here so we can, so residents can know what they can look forward to. So are there, can we have any estimation of when we can expect these studies, or even when the draft will be prepared?
Well, first thing we need to do is we need to set up the 3 of the meetings that we want to do with the school,
Right.
the seniors, and
Another open house.
maybe another open house, but I'd also like to get Beaumont's opinions in here. And I don't know whether we can accomplish that in October or not.
Well, let me ask this. So the meeting with the seniors, I talked to the Parks and Recreation Director about times when seniors come to do different things, and of course it's during the day. Did you want to, similar to when you went and spoke with the various PTAs in the city, do you want to have 3 of you go, or buddy system? I think it's helpful to have at least 2.
What do you want to do about seniors? It's going to have to be during the day.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's what I'm...
About a Saturday or Sunday? Saturday.
I know the seniors, I think it's Monday they play cards. I don't remember which Mondays, yeah.
Teresa mentioned something, and that it was a Thursday or something would be more apropos. I'm not sure what their meeting is.
I thought it was Mondays.
Well, let's find out.
Okay, but if, it would be helpful if I know kind of if you're going to form the senior subcommittee versus the high school subcommittee to meet, then we can figure out some dates once I talk with, the powers to be at the Parks and Recreation or the high school as far as, appropriate group.
Right.
Mr. Chair, can I suggest maybe we get the 3 dates and then we sit amongst us and figure out how we can get 2 people in a minimum to each one of those dates? Does that seem reasonable?
I think that's reasonable. I'd
Yeah.
like to see 3, maybe break up into 3 groups.
Yeah, so what you can do is email us sometimes, and then we can answer it via email, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know that we necessarily need to make, subgroups per se, because some of us might be able to attend 2 or 3.
No, I understand, but I think
Yeah.
it's helpful to have more than one.
Yeah.
Absolutely clear. I think if 2 of us can't go, we need to find an alternative date.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, when we were talking to all the schools, we had groups of 3, maybe 4, once or twice. That was a very good number, and with the PTAs, and we want them to, there are more of them than us, of course. But that worked out very well. There's a good conversation. So 3 would be a good number for a subgroup.
Let's get some dates down, and then let's work some groups into it.
Mr. Chair, just a
Okay,
quick,
Gary?
is there an anticipated start date for the MISTA thing, or have we not moved that far? Just trying to get a handle on whether or not that's definitely going to happen, or...
No, nothing's definitely going to happen. I gave you guys various next steps based upon the comments that I had seen. And again, we can also look at an open house on a Saturday, but I know Saturdays are precious things, so especially.
Yeah.
So, but we can look at that. So, at any rate, so I have spoken about the target market assessment, as I said in my report, with the city manager in Huntington Woods and with our city manager. And since Huntington Woods is in their beginning process, the city manager did want to hold off until they have their 2 meetings that Commissioner Smith mentioned and kind of see where they're at that point. But she did think it sounded really very interesting, but obviously she wants to hold off until they have their meetings. So I was going to circle back with her in the middle of October. It's going to be approximate, when I spoke with Jim Tischler last couple weeks, he from MISTA, he had said that their fiscal year is, I get the idea, it begins in October.
October 1st.
Okay, thank you.
State.
So he had thought, nothing's in stone yet, but he thought that there would be some money available to provide matching. So the city's portion would be about $10,000, or the local, whether it's Huntington Woods and Berkley or whatever local match there is, would be about $10,000. Conversely, as I also said in my report, you could look at, rather than a target market needs assessment, you could look at, a survey. We had talked about different things, so I wanted to hear what the Planning Commission wanted to do. So there's nothing in stone yet. If you want me to approach the market needs assessment, then that's something, obviously, we need to look at. I need to talk
that's
with,
what we need to get
financial.
moved.
Okay.
We need to move to that.
All right.
I think that's the most apropos for us.
But in the meantime, let's get the
Let's
dates
start
on the calendar.
for the other 3.
Yeah, I think, we're not going to hold off, because
No.
that'll be later. The target market needs assessment. Okay.
And the 2007 master plan, were there several open houses, or was it just was it over the course of several months as well? Okay.
It took several years to put together the 2007 master plan. There was plenty of citizen input at the open houses.
The 200, right?
There was what?
The master plan said there was feedback from around 200 people.
Written feedback from around 200 people.
In the master plan, it mentions when it was developed that...
I was part of that plan, and we spent months
Okay.
talking to residents.
Okay. So those are my comments. I see the Plan Commission liaison here. I would actually like to see what her perspective is on this. So thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to move forward here.
Real quick, I've heard almost all of you talk about seniors. It's one of those things that has come up multiple times through the form-based code, and even now we're talking about housing for the seniors.
I'm sorry, I have to ask you to say your name.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm Lisa Kempner. I live on Columbia. So Berkley Citizens United had FOIA'd that because we went, okay, cool. If there's that many seniors who have come and said, hey, we need a better place, we need more places, there should be some record of that. The problem is that we asked for that information, and the city came back and said, we don't have any information on that would fulfill that request. So there's a lot of talk about seniors, but there's no...
Maybe after we meet with them, maybe we'll have some data.
Well, I
Thank
guess
you.
this comes back to the trust, because during the rezoning and the form-based code, that was said a lot. We looked and we found that we had this great need, but it turns out that there wasn't any great need that was found besides maybe anecdotal, but not anecdotal enough that it was anything that you could produce, which is a problem when you're trying to create rezoning or anything like that. So my only point isn't to start any crazy argument. It's just to say this is part of the trust part that the citizens are having. Because when we go, all right, well then where's the backup of that information? There isn't. I'm glad that we're trying to get it, but you're probably, they're baby steps with trust, right? So we're going to look at those studies and go, okay, but is this a real study or is this an anecdotal study? Where's the backup? And that's unfortunately going to be part of this process.
Those are fair questions. Yeah. You can ask those questions.
Fair questions.
They need to be asked by us and you.
Frankly, I'm insulted, and I think I'm on so many different levels. When you passed the First Amendment, the 2015 amendment, none of this was important enough to research and discuss and go on. You cite seniors' needs, and yet, as she said, you can't produce any documentation that showed that was a valid concern for which you passed an amendment.
We are looking at the entire city of Berkeley right now. We're looking at it because you folks have come to us and asked us to. So that's what we are in the process of doing. And
I was
that's
interrupted. I was interrupted.
Well, I'm trying
sorry.
to.
I was being very respectful.
I'm trying to make it clear that that's what we're doing. I'm trying to explain to you because I understand what you're asking. You don't see a need.
Sure you do, because you didn't listen to what I even said.
Yes, I did.
You didn't let me finish. You didn't let me actually say what I came up here to say.
Say it.
I am insulted because you passed an amendment without doing any of this. Then when people come and say, no, this is not what we want, this is not what we want, all of a sudden now you have to do all this research and all this study. Now it looks to me, and I'm sure it looks to other people, that the purpose of doing all this now is to circumvent what the people want. That's what it looks like. Maybe that's not the end result, maybe that is not your intention, but that is what it looks like to us. I hope that you can understand that. Now, on another level, I am a senior. I have a lot of senior friends in the city. I think that there are a lot of seniors here. I know during the open house there were a lot of seniors, and I'm sure they gave you their input. And now you have to go to a group of seniors. What is this group of seniors that are so important, all important, that you have to get their own specific little viewpoint on? I don't understand that.
Because we were asked to.
Who asked you to?
Because I was asked by several people to come and talk to the seniors.
I'm a senior. All of our words don't count. All of our feelings don't count.
Your words count. Everybody's words count.
Well, what is this group of seniors that now have to be sought out intentionally to hear from?
Maybe.
That is a question.
I've tried to answer it to the best I can right now. We want to talk to some of the senior groups in the city of Berkeley to get some further information so that we may be able to proceed. And you're standing there and telling me, well, the seniors don't need it. We don't need to talk to them. We've already heard from them.
Have talked to you.
No.
I want to know what this special group of seniors is that is more important than anything that any of us have said.
Well,
I'm a senior. I said I'm a senior. I have senior friends. We were
why-
seniors that talked to you. Now, why are they special? I mean, who is it? Where is it? What is this group of seniors? It just looks like a smoke screen. I'm sorry. Maybe it's not. but
Excuse me.
How it appears to us.
Enough.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Dean Smith.
are we losing sight of the fact that we're pretty much doing a reset and starting over with the process?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's why we're going through this process.
Yes.
This is not a smoke screen. This is nothing but saying, hey, you know what? As a group, we screwed up. We're doing it again, and we're going to do it with a more structured process. That includes talking to people and taking notes. There's nothing wrong with starting over.
Okay, I just want to know specifically who this special group of seniors is.
So can I try to answer that, Mr. Chair? In some of the other things that we've done through the years that I've been, and the 10 years I've been on Planning Commission, we've met with different groups in the city. I think when we were doing the Complete Streets project, we met with the schools, you know, and we didn't just go to the school board. We went to the PTA meetings to talk to the parents directly at those meetings about things like that. And I know there's been a session where we went to Oxford Towers and met with the seniors at Oxford Towers. I don't remember what it was for, but we did go and meet with them to get their input, because they are part of this community too. So that's what we're trying to do.
Are those the seniors you're talking about?
Potentially, yeah. We're working with the Parks and Recreation Department, which has a senior program. Okay? So they will publicize this to the senior community, the date and time and the location that we're going to do it, and then they will.
Do you not think that that's kind of a biased group?
You're welcome to come.
Well,
They live in a multi-family
if they are biased, they are biased. They still live here. Everybody's biased. Everybody's got a point of view on this.
And maybe if they
We're trying to listen to all of the biased
and
people.
maybe some of them, their opinions will be if they had an alternative place to live than Oxford Towers, maybe they would have chose that instead. I don't know that until I talk to them.
From my point of view and from, I think, other people's point of view, it looks like you're searching for reasons not to listen to the people who have spoken. That's just how it looks. I'm not here to argue. I needed to, I still am not really clear. And the people, is it the people who play cards at this rec center? Because I don't play cards at the rec center. I don't live in Oxford Towers, you know, and there are a lot of seniors in the city who have already spoken.
So,
And it
so
seems
your
like you're
opinion is more
discounting-
important than theirs?
Excuse me. It seems like you're discounting them because you want to seek out a special group
No.
of seniors.
No.
That's what it looks like.
Ours is that everybody's opinion matters. Yes, you're absolutely right. Everybody has an equal right to have an opinion. So,
And they also have
so,
an equal right to speak out as
Yes.
we did.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, hi, my name is Kayla Mylan. I live at 2359 Bacon. So, first of all, thank you for holding the open house, and thank you for agreeing to set dates, because I appreciate the need for wanting to collect more data, but I also don't want to fall in the trap of analysis paralysis. You know, we're getting that endless loop, get feedback, and never do anything. But I do, though I'm frustrated, I do get what you guys are saying, because like it was mentioned before, this was done in 2015. We wouldn't be here today. One thing I was wondering about, I appreciate you guys going around the room and telling about at the open house about the conversations you had, but has anyone compiled actual survey data yet? Like, do you have a breakdown of what percentage of people said what for question 1 or 2? Because I was hoping to get that today.
I thought we got that.
You have it as part of your report.
Get
I
a
mean,
target
you had-
report, that's all. Yeah.
Are you going to share that information? Like, as you guys do these open houses, get feedback, are you guys going to share that information and put it on Berkley's website so we can look at it?
Should.
I don't see why not.
Yeah.
Because I would appreciate that. It
Why
might help
not?
with the trust issue.
I don't see why not.
Yeah, it should, we should.
Yeah.
I don't see why not.
And, okay, I appreciate that. And then, what else? I was also wondering why you couldn't have set another meeting, like why you had to come to this meeting to decide we need an open house. But I also
This
don't.
was our regular
Yeah,
meeting.
but I don't know anything about the Open Meetings Act, so.
So we have to do it
Yeah.
according to
So-
state law.
If there is a way to, at a meeting where you're allowed to talk, say, well, if we don't get this X feedback, or if we don't get feedback from these neighborhoods, or then we're going to have another open house, just little things so you don't have to every month talk about it and wait a whole month before you do another meeting, or talk about whether you need another work session or not. If there's things like that, you can decide at one meeting, like additional things like, oh, we didn't get any feedback from St. John's Wood, so we might want to target them, or, we're looking for a certain turnout, we didn't get it. So when you need to seek the feedback without coming in another meeting and delaying things further, because I want to do it right, but again, I don't want it stretched out unnecessarily. I'm sure you guys don't either.
No.
So.
We want to get it done as soon as we can,
Yeah.
so we get it behind us.
Yep, and dates help. I'm a big fan of dates, even at work and my personal life, so.
We got other topics we
Yeah.
have to cover here, so
Okay, well, those are my.
get it done.
Yep, but this is what I wanted to say, and those are my concerns,
Thank
and
you.
I will be checking in, and I look forward to getting the results as you guys get them too. So thank you.
Thanks.
How's it going? Kurt Height, 3525 Robina. First thing I want to cover is you guys mentioned equal rights. Yes, everybody has a right to put their opinion in. But I guess what I'm disappointed in is the fact that, first of all, you try to say that you only had a month to work on it. You were directed 2 months ago to start the process to amending the master plan, the update. Okay, but if you go back to a month before that, 90 days ago, you were first approached and asked, would you consider repealing the 2015 amendment? So at the very least, I would have appreciated in July, when you directed to start the process, that you would have thought, taken some initiative and say, you know what, we probably want to make a plan to get input from the seniors. We probably want to get input from the high school. We probably want to look at if we want to do a MISTA study. I'm talking about in the last 60 days. You didn't have to wait till today, a month after the one open house and input from 92 people, to finally decide that now we should probably do this too.
Well,
and that's what gives the appearance of dragging the feet.
Well, actually, I have had those conversations with the city planner, but I have not had it as a group discussion.
Right, but I'm talking
I've
about
had it.
starting at the minimum 60 days, but you really could go back 90 days, because at that point, you knew there was a lot of residents that were very unhappy about that amendment. You even gave an interview, and that's what actually kicked off the first handwritten, or the handwritten petition, because in your interview, you responded saying you understood the concerns that the citizens had, but you felt that this amendment represented Berkley now and in the future, and you had no plans in seeing it go by. And so that's what started all this. But you knew then that you really should have started having some initiative and saying, you know what, the citizens need to see that we're willing to make things right. And 90 days to do anything, and you only did one thing, and that was only because you were directed to have an open house. And that is what disappoints me the most. Now, and I'm not trying to point fingers, Mr. Richardson, I appreciate you saying you don't feel comfortable passing wordage or adopting wordage for the next amendment until you get all the facts. But it really bugs me that when you go back and watch all the previous planning commission meetings up until April was the first time there was mention that she was going to have a meeting with some developers. After that meeting, it must have went really well, because on May 2nd, Royal Oak received a letter of intent to update the master plan. There was no meeting that they were going to update the master plan. The letter was sent out. At the end of May, there was no input, there was no meetings besides the meeting with the developer. A document was prepared and read to you all that she wrote. She took the initiative and she wrote it. I applaud initiative. That's really cool. Okay, she wrote it. She read it to you. 4 questions were asked, and including the reading, the introduction of the topic for the discussion of that you needed a master plan amendment if you're going to proceed with the form-based code. You guys adopted it in 7 minutes, and you were comfortable voting on and accepting that language and sending it to City Council with 4 questions, and none of it had anything to do with how it would affect the citizens.
You're just looking at the last portion.
No, I went back. Trust me, sir. There was no mention of amendment. She said, as we spoke in the present term after the developer meeting, I figured out we needed to do an amendment because to the form-based code that we were working on would go against basically our rules and our master plan set forth the guidelines. So she said, so I drafted this thing. Not one of you guys had any discussion on the amendment to that point. She said, I drafted it. Otherwise, why wouldn't any of you guys have said, well, we really probably should have some more input before you just write something?
Well, look.
Nobody said, that's a good attempt.
Look.
That was a great attempt.
It did take us 18 months to get to that point. But
working on form-based code, though. You weren't working on an amendment.
But let me add, I think many commissioners here acknowledge that that process had shortcomings.
But we were told it was done properly. We were told it was done
Mr.
properly.
Smith has said, if we're going to do it again, we want to do it right.
Right, and I understand that. And that's why even the guidelines that you look at that the city manager laid out, it still kind of puts us like 2 to 3 times longer than what the original amendment process took. Now, because we've waited 60 days before we decided that we want to talk to seniors, talk to this high school, now we're looking at probably fudging, another month or 2. You're talking about that amendment was presented to you guys in May. It was adopted in August. Had the same process, which we asked when this all started, that we carry this out with the same expediency that we really hoped that she would prepare the same type of amendment that at the very least would revert it back to the 2007 master plan, which the previous year you guys had already said it represented the views for Berkley and the goals for the future. So to me, my opinion is at the very least, that's what should happen, where you guys do something to bring back the original language that you already have done all the studies and you already knew and felt represented Berkley. And then if you want to take as much time and involve as many people as you want and get everybody to have their voice, we would be so happy to hear it and so happy to take part, because we would know that now diligence is being served and people are taking initiative to do things the right way. And also trying to restore the trust of the citizens. But that's why it gets people upset to continually hear, well, it was done the right way the last time, but now we want to do things the right way. And I would not consider anything without getting all the information, but you did. And that's why people get so upset. I even looking at the chart that the city manager put in, I looked at it and thought, man, we're still looking at 2 times longer right now from this date before we possibly at the soonest could see something sent to the city council and move it forward.
Talking about?
Yes. If you look at the timeline, look at the days. But when the original wording for the 2015 amendment was presented, it was done within 60 days.
We're looking at doing something a little more sophisticated than what that document is. So,
well, I understand that, but like I said, I would have appreciated starting even 60 days when you were directed to start the process for the amendment, that you would have taken the initiative and said, we need to get input from this group, because they're not mobile. I understand that, and I appreciate you getting their input. Okay, but now the last thing I want to talk about is that what really bugs me. Okay, when you guys, and I had this meeting with the city manager and Mr. Baker from the city council, we talked about what kind of information is going to be presented at this open house. And I felt, and I was extremely worried, that you guys are going to stand in this open house and regardless of what you say your intent is, or I understand you don't have an agenda, but when you present multifamily housing and why we need it, over and over and over again. And now, and that's what happened at the open house. And then you have a survey that 4 of the 6 questions or whatever was basically not giving you a chance to say whether you want to see it or not. It was, what do you like most or least? I mean, it was very misleading. If somebody's just kind of looked at it and said, okay, I fill this in, you can look at it and say, oh, look, they want townhouses. This is the most liked option of all of them. Let's do townhouses. I'm worried that you're going to go to the senior citizens and say, look, we got these studies that say we need multifamily housing, because you haven't done your new studies yet. I provided several different articles that showed that what the preferences are for millennials, for seniors, you name it, and all of it show that seniors are moving, or the boomers are now moving away from the urban areas and looking for single-family housing. Millennials, now that they've actually matured and are settling down and having families and they're having full-time jobs, they're settling down and having families. Guess where they're moving? Single-family residential. Okay, but if you go to the seniors that, like you said, they don't get out and about, they're reliant on what the information you're bringing to them, and you say, you need multifamily housing. Which ones do you like? You give them the same survey, and you're going to walk away from that saying, look, all these seniors want multifamily housing. I say, you know what? If you're going to present them information for all the sides. Present them information about multifamily housing, what the pros and the cons are, but also tell them, you know what? The citizens have spoken, they like this, but you know what? There's also information about why single-family residential is so important and why people like it and what it does for the values and how Berkley is booming the way it is and people are moving here the way it is. And present that information too. Be fair. Don't just present the information that we've heard that you guys collected for a year and a half and say, well, this is what they told us they wanted. They want multifamily housing, because you're not giving them any other option to choose.
Quite frankly, I'm going to respond to you if I could. Okay. I have been looking at senior citizen housing. I've had long discussions with Mr. Martin Smith, and him and I have gone back and forth about it. And we're not looking at multifamily. We're looking at single family for seniors. And that we're trying to figure out a level of how to provide single floor residential housing for seniors at an economic, with an economic base. And multifamily, I keep hearing you people come back to me with multifamily. Personally, multifamily in my life is a dead issue. I don't see it. Do I see townhouses? Yes, I see townhouses. But do I see them in the middle of a residential neighborhood? Heck no. I wouldn't do that. I don't see that at all. If we do townhouses, I would see them on the periphery near areas where they can get to streets that can support automobiles and what have you. But I don't see multifamily in the way you're looking at it. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just going by based on what everything's been presented, and there was nothing new on that board that said anything about the data to point. I'm sorry.
Mr. Murin.
So you're going to know the dates we're going to meet with the school, the seniors. You're welcome to show up too, any of you.
Yeah, I work 60 hours a week, but okay, I understand that. Now,
so do I. But I'm going to take time to do it.
Yep. So,
okay.
So I'm just saying, if anybody wants to come to one of those meetings, you'll know the dates, the times, you're welcome to come. You don't have to be a senior.
Right.
That's our target audience.
Okay, well, now, you mentioned setbacks earlier, and maybe that is something that can be used to conquer the same thing that you're talking about, senior housing. Now, I'm kind of worried that when you say single floor, you're kind of more saying apartments. Well, as long as they're in certain areas that people have already said that they kind of would be okay with, that's great.
I'm not looking at apartments either.
But maybe when you do work on the setbacks, maybe that could be something that could be thought about, because had the setbacks not been changed to allow the bigger foot houses, and don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking the bigger houses. I think they look great. I got great ones on my
existing
street.
setbacks.
Okay, but if you start addressing the setbacks and not allowing such big houses, maybe some of the smaller homes wouldn't have been purchased, and they could have been, renovated and made, accessible for seniors that they could have moved into, rather than moving into a high rise or only having a choice of a 3-story condo or something. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Rachel, I live on Oxford. Last name is Picentini. I want to echo what another
resident said about the getting the copy of the results that you guys received. And that was one of the things of the people that I did talk to at the open house, that I tried to impress upon you the importance of transparency to see what the residents were telling you and what they wrote on the survey. So that's good to hear that that's going to come out. Do we know when? Approximate?
No, I don't. I don't have control over the website, so I'll have to check with the deputy city manager on that.
Well, somebody has to type it up, right?
It's already typed up.
Oh, it's already typed up. So you're saying we can actually come in and get it if we want?
Yes, you can get a copy of the Planning Commission's report, yes.
Okay. The other thing I want to say is, over the past, I don't know, several months or 6 months or so, I'm sure we have all seen, and I believe I actually sent you guys an article about Berkley and how it's a great place and 28th in the nation and all that good stuff, right? So I think we should ask ourselves, Berkley hasn't changed a whole lot in 10 years, I'm guessing, right? We haven't had massive, except for Harvard Commons that's coming down the pike here, but we haven't had any massive changes, right?
What kind of changes?
What do you call changes? What are we talking about?
Like with the multifamily housing, that hasn't popped up because you guys just tried to pass that. But there hasn't been any massive changes. The main roads are the same. They look the same. We have the same stores. We have maybe a couple different restaurants that pop up, right?
I got to say that there's been major changes along 12 Mile Coolidge and
Well, the
Woodward.
streetscape on 12 Mile was done 10 years ago.
Yeah, there's a
Right, so I said in 10 years, right? That's what I said. So
Changed 10 years ago.
10 years ago, right, that's what I said. So my question is, why did we get to be picked to be the top or number 28 in the nation or whatever we are? It's not because we have to put in multifamily or townhouses or what? Sorry, I said multifamily. What would you like me to use? Townhouses? Because we haven't put those in. That's not why we were voted that. We were voted that for what we are right now today. I just want to point that out, right?
You know,
So-
I'm not arguing with.
Do you see what I'm saying, though?
I do see what
Okay.
you're saying. I just want to point out one thing. 20 years ago, the little downtowns around this area, they were dying. But they were dead. And but urban planners, whose jobs are to keep track of trends, realized that there was potential in those downtowns and that the population would respond. And the revitalization of our downtown was not an accident. It was in response to seeing a trend and responding to it. We're trying to do the same thing at the Rabina corner right now, be responsive to trends. So you have to, and I don't want to go into specifics
that's
about
okay.
townhouses. I'm just saying you have to be aware of what's going on out there, and you have to try to keep up with changes which are bigger than your little town. You just do.
Hey, I'm not saying I don't want change. I'm just saying, of course, we didn't want it through the interior of the city. You know, certain spots, that's great. Have at it, right? The other thing I want to.
Go ahead.
Well, the previous master plan called for certain spots. That's what I'm trying to point out. So the other thing I want to say is, Mr. Barnett, you said you're looking for senior housing, and or not maybe senior housing, but maybe ranch type levels, right?
Well, it's not necessarily a ranch, but
Something.
we're kicking it. I've kicked it
You're
around.
thinking about it.
And I got to say, right now, I'm kicking it around, but I've kicked it almost to the end. I'm not sure that it can be done.
A perfect spot would have been, don't hate me, Mr. Martin, but where the PUD, because I'm getting that look,
Sure.
where the PUD is, where Harvard Commons is, that would have been a perfect spot. Just saying. If you guys want, instead of 3-story tall buildings that are towering over everyone.
No, it wouldn't
Just
work
my
then.
2 cents on that.
I
The
looked at it. It wouldn't work then. Sorry.
Well, they-
economics don't work there.
The economics weren't there.
Well, I'm just saying it would have been a nice spot if you wanted to build ranch type, lower level, because the one thing that seniors don't want is 2-story and 3-story housing, right?
We know that. yeah.
Okay. So the other thing Mr. Murad pointed out is, you had said earlier, actually, that little 900 square foot house that you would love to, if you could move back to that house, right?
It's what I live in now.
So do I, except mine's 1,000, but that's okay.
I don't have 1,000.
No comment.
Okay.
Anyway, those houses, those 900 and 1,000 square, they're going away.
Unfortunately,
They are very much going away,
And
right?
some-
And so,
still a lot of them.
but they're going away very quickly because the builders are buying them and tearing them down. And not that I'm against builds, I'm not. But I think it's important to keep some of those houses in our community, right? For people like you who still want a house but not two-story house, right?
So what can the planning commission do to stop that? So one of the things the chairman mentioned is maybe we look at the height based on the setbacks.
Right?
So if you have these 5-foot setbacks, which the 40-foot lots, that's what they are. It's 5 foot on one side, 10 foot on the other. So the most you can build is a 25-foot wide house, and that's what a lot of these builders are building.
Right.
But maybe they're too tall.
Yeah.
So
Zoning ordinances, I agree, need to be looked at.
we will start looking at that.
And egress
Yep.
windows. We need codes
I'll
for
look at
egress
that.
windows, just so you know.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
The egress windows, if you haven't looked at some of the new builds, they are like literally this far from the lot line. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the person's driveway next door. That's how far they're coming out. I mean, I can walk up the person's driveway and see into their house. I could touch them. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Right? They're very, 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 very close in the big houses, right? And what's interesting to me on that is why don't they put them in the backyard? They're always on the side of the house. Why don't they put them in the backyard? That would seem more privacy for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And I don't understand why that doesn't, I mean, that's maybe what the code should be, I don't know, right?
Maybe.
Maybe.
We need to look at that.
We need to look at it.
You know, so here now we have this master plan amendment, and now we're looking at other things around residential codes.
I'm very excited, you have no idea.
So, you know,
Yep.
and I'll tell you, I've driven around a lot around this area into Royal Oak, north of Berkley. They're building those Bigfoots too. So it's not just a
Everybody
Berkley
is.
thing.
Interestingly enough, did you guys read the article I sent you that said the trend is actually going to be for ranches? And the builders going forward, this one particular builder, I can't remember his name, who was interviewed, from here on out, he says he's going to be building ranches. So I'm wondering, you guys keep talking about trends, so is this a trend we need to pay attention to?
Sure.
I know we have small lots, but
Economics in Berkeley are gonna mean they're gonna have to take down 2 houses to build a ranch that'll have enough square footage that people want.
that would be fine, wouldn't it? But then they wouldn't be so close to the other house, they wouldn't be so close to the other
Here's
lots.
a basic dilemma
right?
that we grapple with. People today want a lot more square feet than they did 50 years ago. And whether you're talking on one story or 2 stories, they want that square footage. So if you're going to go 1 story, you're going to spread out more.
You're right, and you know what's going to happen? The city's going to lose revenue because that's less taxes because it's only 1 house.
That's right.
So it all comes down to money, let's all admit it.
I'm
It's
not going to
exactly what it
admit
is.
that. I don't
Right, but I'm saying, but if you have
so sure
a
about
good-sized ranch on a double lot, hey, that's
Yeah.
okay, right?
It'll be $600,000.
I mean,
economics
the
don't work out.
basic problem.
I don't know, we already have that on Sunny Knoll, a $650,000 house, just so you know.
Yeah, I mean,
People have exercise equipment. They have a giant TV and a
They do.
visual room. They have this, and
Some
this
people-
is what people want now.
Not all people, just not all people.
No.
Trust me.
Not all people.
But there
of
are
course
some
not all
people that do. And just like Chairman Barnett pointed out when he moved here in 1955, there are 25,000 residents in the city. So imagine the size of the families that were in these small houses in Berkeley. People won't do that today.
This conversation has kind of,
So anyway, I know it's late, you guys, I want to go home, but thank you, appreciate it.
but organically, this conversation kind of touched on, I think, the central dilemma of a successful community, which is that success is an attractor and it leads to change. And in the case of a community like ours, it's leading to larger houses being built, where once there were smaller houses. And when it happens in a more down at the heels area, it's usually called gentrification. You know, so I mean, it's good that we're talking about this as a community because obviously it's something it's a pressing issue for
It
us.
happened in Birmingham 15, 20 years ago.
Yes, it did.
What's still happening in Birmingham?
And it's still
yeah.
happening.
Still
But
happening
it
there.
started in Birmingham.
I don't want to be Birmingham, though, just so you
I
guys
don't
know.
either.
I just want to be
I don't want to
Berkeley.
be Royal Oak either.
I don't want to be firm.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we,
I just want to make a couple corrections, that's all. Not 3% was the results of the BRARR survey. 15, that 500 plus the petitions, and even with the overlap, it's conservatively 15% of your voters, not of your residents. When you talk about it, I heard the figure 3% being thrown out, but that's not accurate. So let's make that real clear. Furthermore, 34% of the survey responders, 34% of the 550, give or take a few, were seniors, classified above age 52. A third. You've got the data available. They collected it. Use it. Number two, to clarify what other people said, set a timeline for clarity, for transparency. Set a timeline, a reasonable one that nobody will get the impression that you're dragging your heels. Publish it. Mr. Richardson brought of future use and all the things that you have to consider, and I totally understand all that. For me, problematic is the fact that we can't contact some of you people. And you want people to reach out to you. I would like to see all of your emails published on the city website as well as the city planners. We have no way of communicating with you directly for a lot of your members. I don't want to. What?
I'd be stunned if my email wasn't in complete circulation because I've gotten.
Well, the city
dozens of
website, I would urge you as a group to put your email addresses on the city website. I can contact every one of the city council members. You are an important committee here. I want to see emails for each one of you members and the city planner so we can communicate directly and it all becomes part of the public record so we don't have the issue of not being transparent. It's simple technology. Seniors use it. I'm a senior. I use it. I think I've fully representative of people of my generation. Multifamily, Mr. Barnett, you said I wouldn't do that. Just for the record, you did last year. Let's just throw that out. I would never do that. You said here tonight, yes, you did. And lastly, Beaumont. I worked for the city of Royal Oak for 22 years. I'm telling you, Beaumont never hesitates to reach out when they want something. Contact Beaumont. If you want, I think it's a good idea to do it, but don't place too much stock in it. They just tore down or are in the process of tearing down multifamily housing right now that's been available. So the whole Beaumont thing is kind of silly in my personal opinion. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. What I would like to do is getting a late hour here this evening, and I'd like to, yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to thank you. I felt much more heard since all this started, much more heard and much more respected, and
Thank
thanks.
you. Thank you. The hour is getting late. I want to wrap this up.
And the same, actually. I was confused if we were now on to citizens' comments at the end or if we were still in discussion.
Well, we're sort of in both right now.
All right, and so I know, like, I'm technically way over my personal 2 minutes, but I did have 30 people giving me 2 minutes, so I just wanted to thank you again because I know that everyone on my block sent you a multi-page letter, and
Yes.
that required you to read that and prepare.
Yes.
And I know some people also included attachments that went all the way back to 2011, so
Yes.
thank you again for all the time that you put in to the rezoning issue that was the public hearing tonight.
Thank you for your time, too, and thank you for your work. All right. What I want to do is we're going to move on. We've sort of got citizens' comments. We've sort of got all that wrapped up into the discussion this evening. I think the Planning Commission has some direction. Ms. Vanson, we can move forward with some of this and see where we can get things moving.
Yes.
So with that, liaison reports, do we Want to march through those real
Sure,
quickly?
I can be pretty quick. For the chamber, they currently are up to 150 members. Their report on the Irish Fest, which I was unable to attend, but considering the weather, because I remember it was not a great weather day, they estimate between 3,000 and 5,000 attendees. So, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's great.
Remember, too, it was a 12-hour event. One of their promotions they did was the fairy doors. I don't know if many people noticed that, but they're going to continue that with the idea of doing holiday decorated fairy doors. So during the holiday lights parade. Couple Fridays ago, they had a golf outing. About 60 golfers were registered at that time. Pub crawl was, they said, was a great success, the largest turnout they've had since they started it. It was the 10th anniversary, 157 attendees. Let's see. At the Cruise Fest, they sold out of T-shirts. The first time ever they've sold out of T-shirts. So, and I think what they did is they have, I think, at least one T-shirt of all the years that they created a T-shirt for Cruise Fest, and they're donating those to the Historical Society here in Berkley. So, let's see. A little bit, we have a liaison that comes from the school board. I guess they're planning on October 5th a ribbon cutting at Norup. I guess that's one of the first buildings that's finished with their remodeling and renovations. So the whole community's invited to that. And that's all I have.
Ms. Pott? DDA?
Well, you know that Robina's been closed north and south. There's really, last time I checked, there wasn't enough signage to let people know why it's closed. And it's only temporary. And we need to, as a group, as a community, plan and consider events to make use of that area. Then I reported to the DDA about the open house, and there's 3 vacancies on the DDA at the moment, and
Are any of those residents? Or are they all business owners?
they're business, I think.
I think
Okay.
it is this.
Yeah. And they wanted to reach out to some of the restaurants on Coolidge. Mostly they wanted to be Coolidge people. They have it split with 12-mile residents and then Coolidge. And the ones that left were Coolidge. There's a traffic study with Robina and 12 Mile that's ongoing. And then there's the DDA manager search. Our city planner, city manager, received the okay from the DDA to finalize the job description for this DDA manager that they're looking to hire. So that's done. And hopefully that will move forward. Okay, that's about it.
Environmental, anything?
Hours late.
Okay.
Yes.
Or the ZBA?
ZBA, we had a applicant come to us who wanted to enclose a carport. And there was no way to make it work, so he was denied.
The last city council meeting, they had a presentation from the Regional Transportation Authority of Southeast Michigan, the RTA. They did a presentation regarding the Regional Transit Master Plan that is essentially looking at Woodward Avenue, Gratiot Avenue, Michigan Avenue, rail service between Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, and Detroit, and they're also looking at trying to figure out rapid method of getting people out to the airport. So those are all issues. And of course, you're all going to be voting on that tax incentive on their November ballot. The other thing, Hubble, Roth, and Clark, I guess, are going to be doing work now on the sidewalks in the north of or west of Tyler in the
Yeah,
city.
they've been working on
On
that.
it?
They've been doing topo and so forth.
So they're working on that.
Construction.
I don't know when construction is.
It'd be next year.
Next year, they're putting together documents, I guess, for bidding or whatever, right?
Well, not yet, but
No.
yeah.
It's coming,
Yes.
because they want to clean.
The whole city west of Tyler?
No, it'd be
Just
the
12
remainder
mile.
of 12 Mile.
12 mile, yeah. So that's pretty much council. So with that all said and done, then I guess we'll just run around the room tonight quickly. Mr. Martin Smith, anything?
Oh, I was just gonna bring up the Huntington Woods visioning session, but we talked about it earlier, so nothing else to add, sir.
Mr. Richardson?
Nothing to add.
Ms. Pop?
Nothing.
Mr. Murad?
I'm talked out.
I am too. Ms. Shadle?
Nothing to add, just
Mr.
again, thank you. Continue
Gary?
to come, continue to be involved.
Thanks everyone for coming and for everything else you've done. And I'm looking forward to kind of looking at some of our regulations and seeing what we can do in the short term to maybe address some of the feedback that we've got.
Okay. Mr. Dean Smith?
Just a couple quick comments. One, Mr. Richardson, how much more air do you have? I never thought I would say this, but I'm really happy to see your face tonight. So.
Yeah, we all are.
I'm happy to be here. But I may not have enough air, so make it quick, okay?
Okay, I just, the one comment I wanted to address was, somebody talked about changing setbacks for the larger homes. And the setbacks in the city of Berkeley, 5 feet from one side, 10 feet from the other, have not changed.
No.
What's happened is the depth of the houses and the height of the houses.
Yeah.
But there was no setback change to make a Bigfoot house. Last week, or whenever it was, I got to attend the last of the Robina Rhapsodies. And if we can have something like that downtown, it just improves the maybe cohesiveness of the community. It's nice to have a place where people can get together in a uncontested fashion. With that, I appreciate everybody coming out tonight and sharing their thoughts and feedback. And I know what it was.
He's running out of air.
Yeah, just what I'm thinking is we might want to do a work session to set up a calendar for the update and get some community feedback, and maybe some of the people with some project planning experience can help us out with how long does it take to get things done, who does it, and maybe we can get some volunteer effort.
Yeah.
But I would entertain a work session to set up a calendar.
Okay. Ms. Vanson, anything tonight?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
All right. Then we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Sucking here. Oh, pardon me.
Morning comes early.
Talk too much.
Don't get excited, it raises your heart rate.